Tonight, let's leave the noise of the day behind. Imagine you're sitting on a soft mat in a quiet wooden hut with a faint scent of sandalwood floating in the air. Outside, the moon casts a gentle glow over the garden, and a cricket's soft chirp is the only sound breaking the silence. This is a space just for you, a space to let your mind unwind, to release the worries that have been weighing on you, and to discover the simple, lasting happiness that Buddhist principles hold for centuries. These principles have guided people to find joy not in the chaos of the world around them, but in the calm of their own hearts. Over the next hours, we'll walk through 10 Zen story stelaes of monks and farmers, travelers and carpenters, each carrying a tiny, powerful secret about daily happiness. You don't need to take notes or memorize anything, or even stay fully awake. Just let these words wrap around you like a warm blanket. If your thoughts drift, that's okay. Come back to my voice whenever you're ready. These stories aren't just old tales, they're mirrors. They'll show you that the happiness you're looking for isn't in a new job, a bigger house, or a perfect day. It's in the way you see the world, the way you hold your struggles, and the small moments you often miss. The Buddha once said, "Happiness does not depend on what you have or who you are. It solely relies on what you think." And tonight, we'll learn to think in ways that let happiness grow slowly, gently, like a flower opening at dawn. So adjust your pillow if you need to. Let your shoulders drop a little lower. Take a deep breath in and out. Feel the weight of your body against the bed, the support beneath you. You're safe here. You're exactly where you need to be. Now, let's begin our journey into these stories that will stay with you, even in your dreams, and wake up with you tomorrow, ready to help you find a little more happiness in your day. Let's start with a story about a monk named Huineng, not the famous 6th patriarch. Huineng you might have heard of. This is a quieter Huineng, a monk who lived in a small temple nestled between 2 green hills, where the only sounds most days were the wind in the pine trees and the bell that rang 3 times a day to mark meal times. Huineng was a simple man. He didn't have many things, not because he was poor, but because the temple's rules taught that too many possessions weighed down the heart. But there was one thing he cared about, a small earthenware bowl. It wasn't a fancy bowl. It was brown, with a tiny crack along the rim that he'd mended with clay years ago. The glaze had faded in spots, and if you looked closely, you could see the faint marks of hundreds of meal's grains of rice that had stuck, broth that had dried, all wiped away gently each day. But to Huineng, this bowl was special. It had been given to him by his teacher, an old monk who had passed away when Huineng was still young. His teacher had said, "This bowl holds more than food. It holds the reminder that everything we have is a gift, and gifts are meant to be cherished, but not clung to." Huineng had nodded then, but he didn't really understand. He cherished the bowl, yes, but he also clung to it. Every night, he would wipe it clean and set it on a small shelf next to his bed, making sure it was safe. Every morning, he would check it first thing, just to be sure it hadn't fallen or broken. If another monk needed to borrow a bowl, Huineng would offer one of the temple's extra bowls, but never his own. He told himself it was because of his teacher's memory. But deep down, he knew it was more than that. He was afraid of losing it. Afraid that if the bowl broke, a part of his teacher and a part of his own piece would break too. One autumn morning, the air was crisp with the smell of fallen leaves. Hui Neng had woken early to collect water from the stream at the bottom of the hill. He'd carried his bowl with him, as he always did, tucking it into the fold of his robe to keep it safe. When he reached the stream, he knelt down, carefully taking the bowl out and dipping it into the clear water. The sun was just rising, painting the sky pink and gold, and for a moment, Hui Neng forgot his worry about the bowl. He just watched the water ripple, listening to the stream gurgle over the stones. It was a perfect moment, quiet, calm, full of the kind of simple joy that the Buddha talked about. But then his foot slipped. It was a small slip, nothing serious. He caught himself before he fell. But in that split second, his hand jolted, and the bowl slipped from his fingers. He heard it hit the rocks, first sharp, brittle sound, and then he saw it. The bowl had shattered into 3 pieces, the mended crack giving way entirely. Hui Neng froze. For a moment, he couldn't move. He stared at the broken pieces in the stream, the water swirling around them, and his chest felt tight. He thought of his teacher, of the years he'd spent caring for the bowl, of how safe he'd felt knowing it was there. And now it was gone, broken, lost forever. He sat down on the bank of the stream, feeling tears stinging his eyes. He didn't cry often. Monks were taught to be calm in the face of loss, but this felt different. It wasn't just a bowl. It was a connection to his past, a source of comfort. He thought, now what? How will I remember my teacher? How will I feel safe again? He sat there for a long time, watching the broken pieces. The sun rose higher, warming his back, but he didn't notice. He just replayed the moment over and over in his mind. If he'd held the bowl tighter, if he hadn't slipped, if he'd left it at the temple. All the what-ifs swirled around his head, making his heart heavier and heavier. Just then, he heard a voice behind him. It was Old Wei, a monk from the same temple, who was known for his quiet wisdom. Old Wei was picking wild berries, his basket slung over his arm. He saw Hui Neng sitting there, staring at the stream, and he walked over slowly. "Good morning, Hui Neng," Old Wei said, his voice soft. "Did you come to collect water too?" Hui Neng didn't look up. He just nodded, his throat too tight to speak. Old Wei looked down at the stream, and he saw the broken pieces of the bowl. He didn't say anything for a minute. He just knelt down next to Hui Neng and watched the water, too. Finally, he said, "That was your teacher's bowl, wasn't it?" Hui Neng nodded again, and this time, a tear fell into the stream. "I broke it," he whispered. "I was so careful, but I slipped, and it broke. Now it's gone." Old Wei picked up one of the small pieces of the bowl that had drifted to the bank. He turned it over in his hand, looking at the faded glaze, the marks of use. Then he set it back down gently. "Gone," he said, "or just different." Hui Neng looked up at him, confused. "Different. It's broken. It can't hold water anymore. It can't be used. It's gone." Old Wei smiled, a soft, gentle smile. "Let me ask you this, Hui Neng. What did you love about the bowl?" Hui Neng thought for a moment. "It was my teacher's. It reminded me of him, of his kindness, of the things he taught me. It made me feel close to him, even after he was gone." "Did the bowl itself hold those memories?" Old Wei asked. "Or did you hold them in your heart?" Hui Neng paused. He'd never thought about that. He'd always associated the memories with the bowl, like the bowl was a container for them. But now, as he thought about it, he realized the memories were still there, even with the bowl broken. He could still remember his teacher's voice, the way he'd smiled when he gave the bowl, the lessons he'd shared over meals eaten from that bowl. Those things weren't in the bowl, they were in him. "The memories are in my heart," he said. Quietly, Old Way nodded. Then the bowl didn't hold the memories. It was just a reminder, and reminders can change. Before, the reminder was a whole bowl. Now, maybe the reminder is the sound of the stream, or the feel of the sun on your back, or the way you think of your teacher when you take a drink of water. The reminder doesn't have to be a thing. Hui Neng looked at the broken pieces again. He still felt sad. Loss is sad, even when you understand it, but the tightness in his chest was gone. He realized that he'd been clinging to the bowl, not because of the memories, but because he was afraid of losing the feeling of connection. He'd thought that if the bowl broke, the connection would break too. But that wasn't true. The connection was in his heart, not in a piece of clay. "Attachment is like holding water in your hand," Old Way said, looking at the stream. "If you squeeze too tight, the water slips through your fingers. If you hold your hand open, the water stays for as long as it needs to." The bowl was like that water. You squeezed too tight, afraid of losing it, and in the end, it slipped away. But if you'd held it lightly, cherishing it, but not clinging to it too, would have still had the memories, even if something happened to the bowl. Hui Neng thought about that. He thought about all the times he'd worried about the bowl, checking it at night, refusing to lend it, feeling anxious if it was out of his sight. All that worry had taken away from the joy of the bowl. Instead of enjoying the way it felt in his hand when he ate, or the way it reminded him of his teacher, he'd been focused on not losing it. He'd turned a gift into a burden. That's the thing about attachment, isn't it? We think that holding on to things, people, possessions, memories will make us happy. We think that if we can keep them safe, we'll keep our happiness safe. But really, attachment is the opposite of happiness. It's fear. Fear of loss, fear of change, fear that without that thing we'll be empty. The Buddha taught that life is suffering, not because life is cruel, but because we cling to things that are impermanent. Everything changes. Everything breaks. Everything ends. That's the nature of life. A bowl breaks. A friend moves away. A job ends. A season changes. If we cling to the way things are, we'll always be sad when they change. But if we learn to let go, to hold things lightly, to cherish them while we have them, but to accept when they're gone, we can find happiness even in the change. Hui Neng sat there for a little while longer, watching the stream carry a small piece of the bowl downstream. He didn't try to stop it, he just let it go. Then he stood up, brushed the leaves off his robe, and turned to Old Way. "Thank you," he said. Old Way smiled. "Thank the stream. It taught you more than I ever could." Hui Neng nodded. He bent down, picked up one small piece of the bowl, the piece with the faded glaze that had been his favorite, and tucked it into his robe, not because he was clinging to it, but because it was a new reminder, a reminder to hold things lightly, to cherish the gifts without fear of loss, to find happiness in the heart, not in things. When he went back to the temple that morning, he didn't look for a new bowl right away. He used one of the temple's extra bowls for breakfast, and as he ate, he thought about his teacher. He didn't need the old bowl to feel close to him. He just needed to remember. Later that day, he took the small piece of the broken bowl and placed it on the windowsill of his room, where the sun could hit it. Every morning when he woke up, he would look at it and he would smile. It reminded him of the stream of old ways words, of the lesson he'd learned, that happiness isn't in holding on to things, it's in letting go. We all have our broken bowls, don't we? Maybe it's a possession we love, favorite shirt, a childhood toy, a piece of jewelry. Maybe it's a relationship that ended, a job we lost, a dream that didn't come true. We cling to these things, afraid that if we let them go, we'll lose a part of ourselves. But the truth is, we don't lose anything when we let go of attachment. We gain freedom. Freedom to enjoy the present moment. Freedom to cherish what we have without fear. Freedom to find happiness even when things change. Think about the last time you clung to something. Maybe you were upset because your coffee spilled, or your phone died, or a plan fell through. You thought, this ruins everything. But then, later, you realized it didn't. The coffee was just coffee. The phone was just a phone. The plan was just a plan. The happiness you thought was in those things was never really there. It was in you all along. Hui Neng's bowl broke, but his happiness didn't. It just changed, like the seasons, like the stream, like all things. And that's the secret of this story. Attachment to material things chains us to fear and sadness. Letting go sets us free to find happiness in the one place it can never be broken, in our hearts. As you listen to these words, take a moment to think about what you're clinging to. Is there something in your life that you're holding too tight? Something that's causing you worry or fear, even though it's just a thing? Maybe it's time to let go, not of the thing itself, but of the fear of losing it. Cherish it, yes, but hold it lightly. Like water in your hand, the stream keeps flowing even after the bowl breaks. The sun keeps rising even after the night is dark, and your heart keeps holding happiness even when things change. That's the wisdom of the monk and the broken bowl. That's the wisdom of Buddhist principles for daily happiness. Now, let's take a deep breath in and out. Let that breath carry away any tightness you're holding, any attachment, any fear. Feel the weight of your body against the bed, the support beneath you. You are safe. You are whole. And your happiness is in your heart, not in the things around you. We'll move to our next story soon, but for now, just stay here. Stay in this quiet moment. Stay with the lesson of the broken bowl. Let it sink in. Let it heal. Let it remind you that letting go is where happiness begins. Let's carry the quiet of that stream with us as we walk to a small village not far from Huineng's temple, a village where the roads are dirt, the houses are made of sun-baked clay, and the air smells of ripe wheat and fresh-turned soil. Here lives a farmer named Li. Farmer Li wasn't rich, but he was content. He had a small plot of land that he tended with care, a thatched roof over his head, and a brown mare that helped him plow the fields each spring. Everyone in the village knew Farmer Lahi was the kind of man who would stop to help a neighbor fix a fence, or share his last bowl of rice with someone who was hungry. And when people asked him what made him so calm, even when the rains didn't come or the bugs ate his crops, he would just smile and say, "We'll see." Luck is a funny thing. Most people in the village didn't understand what he meant. They thought luck was simple. Good luck was when the harvest was plentiful, or when a new calf was born. Bad luck was when the mare ran away, or when the river flooded. But Farmer Lee saw it differently. He'd learned, over years of working the land, that the earth doesn't stay the same. One season it's dry, the next it's wet. One year the wheat grows tall, the next it's stunted by wind. And he'd learned that his heart didn't have to change with it. He could stay steady, even when everything around him shifted. It all started one autumn, when the harvest was just ending. Farmer Lee had spent the day stacking hay bales in his barn, and his mare had been tied to a post outside, munching on a pile of fresh grass. When he came out to untie her for the night, she was gone. The rope was still there. Frayed at the end, she'd pulled it loose and run off into the hills. Farmer Lee walked around the village that evening, asking his neighbors if they'd seen her. "She's a brown mare with a white spot on her forehead," he said. "Quiet, mostly. She doesn't usually run." But no one had seen her. The sun set, painting the hills pink and orange, and still there was no sign of the mare. When he got home, his wife, May, was waiting for him with a bowl of hot soup. "Did you find her?" she asked, her voice soft with worry. Farmer Lee shook his head, sitting down at the table. "No, but she's a smart mare. She'll find her way back, or she won't. We'll see." May sighed. She loved her husband, but sometimes his calmness frustrated her. "How can you say that? She's our only mare. We need her to plow the fields next spring. If we don't get her back, we'll have to borrow from the Wangs, and they'll charge us so much we won't have enough money for seed. That's bad luck, Lee, plain and simple." Farmer Lee took a spoonful of soup, savoring the warmth. "Maybe," he said, "but maybe not. We don't know yet. Let's sleep on it." The next morning, the village gossip told Mrs. Zhang stopped by their house with a basket of apples. "I heard about your mare, Lee," she said, her voice loud enough for the whole street to hear. "Such bad luck. I told you, you should have tied her with a stronger rope. Now you'll be stuck next spring, and your crops will fail." And Farmer Lee held up his hand, smiling. "Thank you for the apples, Mrs. Zhang. We'll manage. Luck turns, you know." Old Mrs. Zhang huffed, shaking her head. "You're too calm for your own good, Lee. Mark my words, this is bad luck, and it'll only get worse." But Farmer Lee didn't worry. He spent the next few days working on his tools, sharpening his plow, fixing his cartons instead of moping. And when his neighbors came to offer their sympathy, he would just say, "We'll see, let's give it time." Then, 3 days later, something happened. A young boy from the village ran to their house, out of breath. Farmer Lee, come quick, your mare's back. And she's not alone." Farmer Lee and May followed the boy up the hill, and there, in a small meadow, was their mare. She was standing quietly, eating grass, and beside her were 2 wild stallions, strong black horses with manes that blew in the wind. The mare had run away, but she'd come back with a gift, 2 new horses, ones that were even stronger than she was. The village was amazed. Old Mrs. Zhang came by again, this time with a jar of honey. "Lee, you were right. That wasn't bad luck. 2 stallions. You'll be able to plow twice as fast next spring. You'll have the biggest harvest in the village." Farmer Lee laughed, taking the honey. "Maybe," he said, "but maybe not. We'll see." May looked at him, confused. "Li, how can you not be happy? This is wonderful. We have 3 horses now, not 1. That's good luck, everyone says so." Farmer Li put his arm around her, looking out at the horses. "I am happy, May, but happiness doesn't have to depend on horses. What if tomorrow one of the stallions runs away? Or what if they get sick? Would that make me sad? Maybe a little. But I won't let it break me, because I know that things change. Good luck turns to bad. Bad luck turns to good. It's the way of the world." May didn't say anything, but she thought about it. She thought about the time their son had fallen out of a tree and broken his arm. They'd been so worried, but the healer had fixed it, and their son had learned to be more careful. She thought about the time the river had flooded their fields. They'd lost their crops. But the next year, the soil was richer than ever, and they'd had a better harvest than before. Maybe her husband was right. Maybe luck wasn't just good or bad. Change. A few weeks later, Farmer Li's son, Xiao, asked if he could ride one of the new stallions. Xiao was 16, full of energy, and he'd been begging to ride since the stallions had arrived. "Be careful," Farmer Li said. "They're wilder than our mare. Take it slow." Xiao nodded, grinning. He led one of the stallions out into the field, climbed on its back, and kicked its sides. The stallion reared up, startled, and took off running. Xiao held on tight, laughing, but then the stallion turned sharply, and Xiao fell off, landing hard on the ground. Farmer Li and May heard his cry and ran out. Xiao was lying on the grass, holding his leg. "It hurts," he said, tears in his eyes. They carried him to the healer, who examined his leg and shook his head. "It's broken," he said. "He'll have to rest for a few months. No running, no riding, nothing strenuous." May sat by Xiao's bed that night, brushing his hair back from his forehead. "This is bad luck," she said, quiet so Xiao wouldn't hear. "First, the mare runs away, then we get the stallions. Now Xiao breaks his leg. It's like the good luck turned to bad." Farmer Li sat down beside her, taking her hand. "Is it bad luck?" he said. "Xiao is alive. He's hurt, but he'll heal. And maybe he'll learn to be more patient. Sometimes bad luck is just a lesson in disguise." May looked at him. "A lesson," she said, "but it hurts. He's in pain." "How is that a lesson?" "Because pain teaches us," Farmer Li said. "The earth feels pain when we plow it, but then it grows food. A tree feels pain when we prune it, but then it grows stronger. Xiao will feel pain now, but he'll come back wiser. That's not bad luck, that's life." The next day, old Mrs. Zhang came by again, this time with a bag of herbs for Xiao's leg. "Such bad luck," she said, clucking her tongue. "First the mare, then the stallions, now Xiao's leg. I told you that mare was trouble. You should have never let her come back." Farmer Li just smiled. "We'll see, Mrs. Zhang, we'll see." And sure enough, as the weeks passed, Xiao started to heal. He couldn't work in the fields, so he spent his days reading the old books. Farmer Li had collected books about the stars, about the earth, about the teachings of the Buddha. He started asking Farmer Li questions about life, about why things happen the way they do, and Farmer Li would answer, slowly, gently, telling him about impermanence, the idea that nothing stays the same, and that's okay. One afternoon, when Zhao was sitting outside, watching the horses graze, he said, "I think I understand now. About luck, it's not good or bad, it's just change." and we can choose how to feel about it. Farmer Lee nodded, proud. That's right, son. The Buddha said that life is like a river. It flows, it bends, it sometimes rushes, sometimes slows. But if you try to stop it, you'll only get wet. If you let it carry you, you'll see where it goes. The pain of a broken leg, the joy of a new horse, they're both part of the river. You don't have to cling to the joy or fear the pain. You just have to keep going. By the time spring came, Zhao's leg was fully healed. He didn't ride the stallions anymore. Instead, he helped Farmer Lee plow the fields, walking beside the horses, talking to them softly. And when the harvest came that autumn, it was the biggest Farmer Lee had ever had. The wheat was tall, the vegetables were plump, and even the apples on his tree were sweeter than usual. Old Mrs. Zhang came by to congratulate him, holding a basket of her famous peach buns. Lee, you were right. All that bad luck turned into good luck. Xiao is healed. The harvest is wonderful. This is the best luck you've ever had. Farmer Lee took the buns, smiling. Maybe, he said. But next year, the harvest might be small, or the horses might get sick, or something else will happen, and that's okay. Because I know that luck isn't something that stays. It's something that changes, and so do I. But my happiness, that stays, because it's not in the harvest, or the horses, or Zhao's leg. It's in me. It's in knowing that whatever comes, I can handle it. That's the real luck. May looked at her husband, and this time, she didn't just hear his words, she felt them. She thought about all the ups and downs they'd been through. The lost mare, the new stallions, the broken leg, the big harvest, and she realized that none of those things had made or broken their happiness. What had made them happy was being together, supporting each other, and staying steady, even when the world around them shifted. That's the lesson of Farmer Lee's luck, isn't it? Life is full of changes, some that feel like gifts, some that feel like losses. But the Buddha taught us that suffering doesn't come from the changes themselves. It comes from clinging to the good ones and fearing the bad ones. It comes from thinking that happiness is something we can hold on to, like a mare tied to a post. But happiness isn't a thing, it's a way of seeing. It's seeing that even when the mare runs away, there might be stallions waiting. Even when a leg breaks, there might be books to read, lessons to learn. Even when the harvest is small, there might be neighbors to share with, love to give. We all have our own mare runs away moments. Maybe it's losing a job, or ending a relationship, or getting sick. In those moments, we think, this is the worst thing that could happen. My luck is terrible. But then, later, we look back and see maybe that job loss led to a better one. Maybe that relationship ending taught us what we really need. Maybe that illness made us appreciate our health more. We don't see it at the time, but the bad luck was just a turn in the river. And we all have our stallions come home moments too. A promotion, a new friend, a beautiful day. We think, this is perfect. I'll never be unhappy again. But then, the stallion runs, or the leg breaks, and we're disappointed. We forget that the good moments don't last forever, just like the bad ones don't. The key, Farmer Lee teaches us, is to stay steady. To be like the earth, firm, but not rigid. The earth doesn't get upset when it rains too much, or too little. It just absorbs what it needs, and keeps growing. We can be like that too. We can absorb the good moments, cherish them, but not cling to them. We can absorb the hard moments, learn from them, but not let them break us. As you listen to this, think about a time when you thought you had bad luck. Maybe it was last week, or last year, or even longer ago. Can you see now how that moment changed you? Did it make you stronger, wiser? Did it lead you to something better? Maybe you can't see it yet, Dan. That's okay. Sometimes the river bends so far we can't see where it's going, but we can trust that it's going somewhere. We can trust that the change is part of the path. And think about a time when you had good luck. A moment when you felt like everything was perfect. Did that moment last forever? No. But the joy of it did that stay. The memory of it, the way it made you feel, those things are still with you, even if the moment is gone. And that's the thing. The moments change, but the joy doesn't have to. We can carry it with us, like Farmer Lee carried his calm, even when the mare was gone, even when the leg was broken. Farmer Lee's story isn't just about a mare and 2 stallions. It's about impermanence, the most basic and most powerful Buddhist principle for daily happiness. Impermanence means that nothing stays the same. And that's not a bad thing, it's a gift. Because if everything stayed the same, we'd never grow. We'd never learn. We'd never experience the joy of a stallion coming home, or the wisdom of a broken leg. So the next time you're faced with bad luck, remember Farmer Lee. Remember to say, "We'll see." Remember that the river is still flowing. And the next time you're faced with good luck, remember to cherish it. Remember that the river will bend again. Now, let's take a deep breath in and out. Feel the air fill your lungs, then leave them. Feel the rhythm of your breath, in, the out, the pause in between. That's impermanence too. Each breath is new, each breath is gone. But the act of breathing steady, just like your happiness, it's not in the breaths themselves. It's in the act of breathing, of being alive, of letting each moment come and go without fear, without clinging. We'll move to our next story soon, but for now, just stay with this breath. Stay with the lesson of Farmer Lee's luck. Let it sink in. Let it remind you that change is not your enemy, it's your teacher. And happiness is not something you find in the good luck. It's something you find in your self-steady.com, unchanging even when everything around you is changing. May looked at her husband, and this time she didn't just hear his words, she felt them. She thought about all the ups and downs they'd been through. The lost mare, the new stallions, the broken leg, the big harvest. And she realized that none of those things had made or broken their happiness. What had made them happy was being together, supporting each other, and staying steady even when the world around them shifted. That's the lesson of Farmer Lee's luck, isn't it? Life is full of changes, some that feel like gifts, some that feel like losses. But the Buddha taught us that suffering doesn't come from the changes themselves. It comes from clinging to the good ones and fearing the bad ones. It comes from thinking that happiness is something we can hold on to, like a mare tied to a post. But happiness isn't a thing, it's a way of seeing. It's seeing that even when the mare runs away, there might be stallions waiting. Even when a leg breaks, there might be books to read, lessons to learn. Even when the harvest is small, there might be neighbors to share with, love to give. We all have our own mare runs away moments. Maybe it's losing a job, or ending a relationship, or getting sick. In those moments, we think, this is the worst thing that could happen. My luck is terrible. But then, later, we look back and seem maybe that job loss led to a better one. Maybe that relationship ending taught us what we really need. Maybe that illness made us appreciate our health more. We don't see it at the time, but the bad luck was just a turn in the river, and we all have our stallions come home moments too. A promotion, a new friend, a beautiful day. We think this is perfect. I'll never be unhappy again. But then the stallion runs, or the leg breaks, and we're disappointed. We forget that the good moments don't last forever, just like the bad ones don't. The key, Farmer Lee teaches us, is to stay steady, to be like the earth, firm but not rigid. The earth doesn't get upset when it rains too much or too little. It just absorbs what it needs and keeps growing. We can be like that too. We can absorb the good moments, cherish them, but not cling to them. We can absorb the hard moments, learn from them, but not let them break us. As you listen to this, think about a time when you thought you had bad luck. Maybe it was last week, or last year, or even longer ago. Can you see now how that moment changed you? Did it make you stronger, wiser? Did it lead you to something better? Maybe you can't see it yet, Dan. That's okay. Sometimes the river bends so far we can't see where it's going, but we can trust that it's going somewhere. We can trust that the change is part of the path. And think about a time when you had good luck. A moment when you felt like everything was perfect. Did that moment last forever? No. But the joy of it did that stay. The memory of it, the way it made you feel, those things are still with you, even if the moment is gone. And that's the thing. The moments change, but the joy doesn't have to. We can carry it with us, like Farmer Lee carried his calm, even when the mare was gone, even when the leg was broken. Farmer Lee's story isn't just about a mare and two stallions. It's about impermanence, the most basic and most powerful Buddhist principle for daily happiness. Impermanence means that nothing stays the same. And that's not a bad thing, it's a gift. Because if everything stayed the same, we'd never grow. We'd never learn. We'd never experience the joy of a stallion coming home, or the wisdom of a broken leg. So the next time you're faced with bad luck, remember Farmer Lee. Remember to say, "We'll see." Remember that the river is still flowing. And the next time you're faced with good luck, remember to cherish it. Remember that the river will bend again. Now, let's take a deep breath in and out. Feel the air fill your lungs, then leave them. Feel the rhythm of your breath, in, the out, the pause in between. That's impermanence too. Each breath is new, each breath is gone. But the act of breathing steady, just like your happiness, it's not in the breaths themselves. It's in the act of breathing, of being alive, of letting each moment come and go without fear, without clinging. We'll move to our next story soon, but for now, just stay with this breath. Stay with the lesson of Farmer Lee's luck. Let it sink in. Let it remind you that change is not your enemy, it's your teacher, and happiness is not something you find in the good luck. It's something you find in your self-steady.com, unchanging even when everything around you is changing. Let's leave Farmer Lee's village behind, letting the scent of wheat and turned soil fade gently as we walk toward a temple perched on a hillside. This temple is smaller than Hui Neng's. Its wooden gates, worn smooth by decades of hands pushing them open, pilgrims, travelers, and young monks seeking wisdom. Inside, the courtyard is paved with stones that glow faintly in the sunlight. And in the center, there's an old plum tree, its branches heavy with pink blossoms that drift to the ground like soft snow when the wind blows. Here lives a Chanshi, Chan Shi A, Zen master named Master Wu. Master Wu was not like other teachers. He rarely spoke. When his disciples asked him questions about happiness, or peace, or the meaning of life, he would not give them long lectures. Instead, he would gesture to the plum tree, or hand them a broom, or sit quietly pouring tea and invite them to watch. His most dedicated disciple, a young man named An, often felt frustrated by this. An wanted answers clear, simple words he could memorize, rules he could follow. He didn't understand why Master Wu always chose silence over speech. An had come to the temple 3 years earlier, after leaving his home in the city. He'd been a student there, studying for exams that would get him a good job, a big house, a life that everyone around him said was successful. But the more he studied, the more empty he felt. He'd lie awake at night, his mind racing, worried about the next test, the next deadline, the next step. He'd see people around him laughing, eating, talking, and he'd wonder, why can't I feel that peace? Why is my mind always somewhere else? One day, he'd heard a traveler talking about Master Wu, about a teacher who could calm the busiest mind with a single look. So An packed a small bag, said goodbye to his family, and walked to the hillside temple. He'd hoped Master Wu would give him a secret mantra, a meditation technique, a phrase that would stop his thoughts from racing. But instead, Master Wu had handed him a broom and said, "Sweep the courtyard. And when you sweep, just sweep." At first, An didn't understand. He'd sweep the stones, but his mind would be elsewhere, thinking about his old life, about the exams he'd left behind, about whether he'd made the right choice. He'd finish sweeping and go to Master Wu, saying, "I swept the courtyard, but my mind is still busy. What am I doing wrong?" Master Wu would just smile and say, "Tomorrow, sweep again. And when you sweep, just sweep." This went on for months. An swept the courtyard, chopped wood, carried water, and every time he finished, he'd go to Master Wu, asking for answers, for words to fix his restlessness. And every time, Master Wu would send him back to his tasks with the same instruction, "Just do the thing you're doing." Spring came, and the plum tree in the courtyard bloomed. The petals fell so thickly that An had to sweep the courtyard twice a day. One morning, he was sweeping, his mind as busy as ever, worrying about whether he'd ever find peace, whether Master Wu was hiding something from him. When a petal landed on the back of his hand, he stopped. For a moment, he forgot to worry. He just looked at the petal, soft, pink, delicate, its edges slightly curled. He felt the coolness of it against his skin, the way it moved when he breathed. He noticed the way the sunlight hit it, turning it almost transparent. And then he noticed something else, the sound of the wind in the plum tree's branches, soft and rustling. The smell of the blossoms, sweet and faint. The feel of the broom in his hand. The rough wood of the handle against his palms. For the first time since he'd come to the temple, An was not thinking about the past or the future. He was just there sweeping, looking at the petal, breathing. And in that moment, he felt a calm he'd never felt before. It wasn't a calm that came from fixing something or knowing something. It was a calm that came from just being present. When he finished sweeping that morning, he didn't go to Master Wu right away. He sat down on a stone bench in the courtyard, looking up at the plum tree. He watched the petals fall, one by one. He listened to the birds singing. He felt the sun on his face. And he smiled for no reason except that he was alive, and he was there. Later that day, he found Master Wu sitting by the temple's small pond, feeding fish. Anne sat down beside him, and for a long time they didn't speak. The only sounds were the water rippling, the fish splashing, and the wind in the trees. Finally, Anne said, "Master, this morning when I was sweeping, a petal fell on my hand, and for a moment I stopped thinking. I just was, and I felt peaceful." "Is that what you've been trying to teach me?" Master Wu didn't look at him. He kept feeding the fish, tossing small pieces of bread into the water. "What did the petal say?" he asked. Anne frowned. The petal didn't say anything. It was just a petal. Master Wu nodded. "And what did the wind say? What did the broom say? What did your breath say?" Anne thought for a moment. They didn't say anything either. They were just things, doing what they do. "Exactly," Master Wu said, finally looking at Anne. "Happiness is not in the answers we speak. It's in the silence between the words. It's in the petal on your hand, the wind in the tree, the broom in your palm. It's in being present for the things that are right in front of you, instead of chasing thoughts about things that are gone, or things that haven't come." And nodded. He thought about all the times he'd been in the city, walking down the street, but thinking about his next exam, eating a meal, but worrying about his future, talking to a friend, but planning what he'd say next. He'd been alive, but he hadn't been present. He'd missed all the small, beautiful things that were right in front of him because his mind was somewhere else. The Buddha called this mindfulness. Master Wu said, tossing another piece of bread into the pond, "Mindfulness is not a trick or a skill. It's just remembering to be here. When you eat, just eat. When you drink, just drink. When you sweep, just sweep. When you breathe, just breathe." Most people live their lives like they're sleepwalking. They do things, but they don't really see them or feel them. They're always thinking about the next thing, the last thing, the thing they wish was happening, and so they miss the life that's happening right now. Anne thought about his mother back in the city. She'd always been telling him to slow down, to enjoy the moment, but he'd never listened. He'd thought she was just being sentimental. Now, he realized she'd been trying to teach him the same thing Master Wu was teaching him about mindfulness, about presence. 1 week later, a traveler came to the temple. He was a businessman from a faraway city, and he looked tired. His eyes were dark, his shoulders were hunched, and he kept checking a small clock he carried in his pocket. He found Master Wu and Anne sitting in the courtyard, drinking tea. "Master Wu," the businessman said, hurrying over, "I've heard you're a wise man. I need your help. I have everything, money, a big house, a good family, but I'm not happy. My mind is always racing. I worry about my business, about my investments, about whether I'm doing enough. I can't sleep. I can't eat. What should I do? Tell me, what's the secret to happiness?" Master Wu poured the businessman a cup of tea. The tea was green, with a faint scent of jasmine. He handed the cup to the businessman, but didn't say anything. The businessman took the cup, but he didn't drink it. He kept talking. "I've read books about happiness. I've gone to seminars. I've tried meditation, but my mind won't stop. I just keep thinking about work, about deadlines, about all the things I need to fix. What am I missing, Master? Please tell me. Master Wu gestured to the cup in the businessman's hand. Drink the tea, he said. The businessman frowned, but he took a sip. He didn't even taste it. He just swallowed quickly, then kept talking. The tea is fine, but that's not what I need. I need answers. I need to know how to stop worrying, how to be happy. Master Wu poured him another cup. Drink the tea, he said again. This time, the businessman hesitated. He looked at Master Wu, then at the cup. He took a slower sip. He noticed the warmth of the cup in his hands. He tasted the jasmine, faint and sweet. He felt the tea slide down his throat, warm and comforting. He paused for just a second and stopped talking. Master Wu smiled. What did the tea say? He asked. The businessman blinked. He looked at the cup, then at Master Wu. It didn't say anything, he said, but I felt it. For a moment, I didn't think about work. I just tasted the tea. And how did that feel? Master Wu asked. The businessman sighed. It was a deep sigh-like. He was letting go of something heavy. It felt calm, like a weight had lifted, just for a second. That's the secret, Master Wu said. Not in the words I tell you, not in the books you read. In the tea, in the moment, in being present for what's right in front of you. You don't need to fix your mind. You just need to come back to it again and again when it drifts away. To the tea, to your breath, to the sound of the wind. That's where happiness lives. The businessman sat there for a long time, drinking his tea. He didn't talk much. He just sat, looking at the plum tree, listening to the birds, tasting the tea. When he left, he walked slower than he had when he arrived. He didn't check his clock once. Anne watched him go, then turned to Master Wu. So mindfulness is just coming back? He asked. Master Wu nodded. Yes, the mind is like a monkey. It jumps from branch to branch, from thought to thought. It never stays still. But you don't have to chase the monkey. You just have to sit quietly, and when it jumps away, you gently bring it back to the tea, to the breath, to the petal. Every time you bring it back, you're practicing mindfulness. Every time you practice mindfulness, you're finding happiness, because happiness is not in the future or the past. It's in the present. Over the next few months, Anne practiced mindfulness every day. When he chopped wood, he focused on the sound of the axe hitting the log, the feel of the wood splitting, the smell of pine. When he carried water, he focused on the weight of the bucket, the sound of the water sloshing, the feel of the sun on his back. When he ate, he focused on the taste of the rice, the texture of the vegetables, the warmth of the soup. He didn't stop. Thinking thoughts still came, like clouds drifting across the sky. But he didn't cling to them. He didn't chase them. He just watched them come and watched them go. Like he watched the petals fall from the plum tree. And in that watching, he found a peace that didn't depend on anything, on Master Wu's words, on his tasks, on the weather. It was a peace that came from just being present. One autumn, Anne's mother came to visit the temple. She was worried about him. She hadn't seen him in years, and she'd heard stories about monks living hard, lonely lives. But when she saw him, she was surprised. He looked calmer than she'd ever seen him. His eyes were bright. His smile was easy. They sat in the courtyard, drinking tea. Anne poured her a cup, and he waited quietly until she took a sip. "Anne," she said, after a moment, "you look happy, really happy. What happened?" Anne smiled. He looked at the plum tree. Its leaves were turning red and gold. falling to the ground. He looked at his mother's face, soft, familiar, full of love. He looked at the cup in her hand, steam rising gently. "I learned to drink tea," he said. His mother frowned. "Drink tea. That's it," Anne nodded. "Not just drink tea. Drink the tea. Be here with the tea, with you, with the tree. Before, I was always somewhere else, thinking about exams, about the future, about all the things I didn't have. Now, I'm here, and here is enough." His mother thought about that. She thought about her own life, working in the kitchen, but worrying about talking to her friends, but thinking about the laundry, watching the sunset, but planning for tomorrow. She realized she'd been missing the same things Anne had been missing. "Can you teach me?" she asked. Anne smiled. He poured her another cup of tea. "Drink the tea," he said, and for a moment, just a moment, she did. She tasted the jasmine. She felt the warmth of the cup. She looked at her son, and she smiled. And in that moment, she felt it too, the calm, the peace, the happiness of being present. That's the lesson of the silent answer, isn't it? We spend so much of our lives chasing answers, looking for the right job, the right relationship, the right book, the right teacher, that we forget to look at what's right in front of us. We think happiness is something we have to find somewhere else, but it's not. It's here in the tea, in the breath, in the petal on our hand, in the sound of a friend's voice. It's in being present for the life that's already happening, instead of waiting for a life that should happen. The Buddha said, "The past is already gone. The future is not yet here. There's only one moment for you to live in, that is the present moment." That's mindfulness. It's not about being perfect. It's not about never having a busy mind. It's about coming back again and again to the present, to the thing you're doing, the person you're with, the moment you're in. Think about your own day, right now. When you woke up this morning, were you present? Or were you already thinking about work or school or the things you had to do? When you ate breakfast, did you taste the food? Or were you scrolling through your phone or worrying about the day ahead? When you walked to your car or took the bus, did you notice the sun or the trees or the people around you? Or were you lost in thought? Most of us are lost in thought most of the time. We're sleepwalking through our lives, missing the small, beautiful moments that make life worth living. But we don't have to be. We can wake up right now by just noticing one thing: the feel of your hands on your lap, the sound of your breath, the light coming through the window. That's mindfulness. That's happiness. Master Wu didn't need to give long speeches. He just needed to remind him to be present, because the answer to how to be happy isn't in words. It's in the silence between them. It's in the moment. As you listen to this, take a moment to be present. Notice the sound of my voice, soft, slow, steady. Notice the feel of your body against the bed, the weight of your legs, the warmth of your hands, the rise and fall of your chest as you breathe. Notice any thoughts that come. They're just clouds. Let them drift. Come back to the sound of my voice. Come back to your breath. Come back to this moment. This is where happiness lives. Not in the future, not in the past, here, now. We'll move to our next story soon, but for now, just stay here. Stay in this moment. Stay with your breath. Stay with the silence. Let it wrap around you, calm you, remind you that you are here that here is enough. Let's let the quiet of Master Wu's temple courtyard linger a little longer, the soft rustle of plum leaves, the faint scent of jasmine tea, then gently turn our steps toward a place of sharp light and dry air, the Gobi Desert. Not the harsh, empty desert you might imagine, but a desert dotted with small oases where date palms grow tall and the sand glows golden at sunset. It's here that a traveler named Kai once walked, his boots dusty, his water skin nearly empty, his mind fixed on one thing, finding water. Kai was a merchant from a city far to the east, where rivers ran full and wells were never more than a short walk away. He'd set out months earlier to trade silk and spices with villages on the desert's edge, but a sandstorm had blown him off course. For 3 days he'd wandered, his water skin growing lighter each day, his throat growing drier. He'd seen mirages, lakes that vanished when he got close, rivers that turned to sand, and each time his hope faded a little more. On the 4th morning, Kai woke up early, before the sun had risen high enough to scorch the sand. His mouth was so dry he could barely speak, and his head throbbed with a dull ache. He unslung his water skin, tilted it toward his mouth, and let a single drop fall onto his tongue. It was warm, metallic tasting, but it felt like a gift. He capped the skin again, careful not to waste a single drop, and stood up. He had to find water soon. As he walked, the sun climbed higher, turning the sand hot beneath his boots. He thought about the city he'd left behind, the cool water of the river that ran through its center, the way his wife would set out a bowl of fresh fruit each evening, the sound of his children laughing as they played in the courtyard. He thought about the silk he'd brought to trade, the spices he'd hoped to bring back. All of it now felt useless. What good was silk if he was too thirsty to walk? What good was spice if he couldn't taste it? "I just need water," he whispered to himself, his voice hoarse. "If I can find water, everything will be okay. I'll be happy again." He walked for hours, his steps growing slower, his vision starting to blur. Then, just as he was about to collapse, he saw it, a cluster of date palms in the distance, their leaves swaying in the faint breeze. And beside the palms, a pool of water, glinting in the sun. Kai's heart raced. He forgot his fatigue, forgot his throbbing head, and ran toward the palms. The sand burned his feet, but he didn't care. He could almost taste the water, cool, fresh, quenching. He imagined cupping it in his hands, drinking until his throat no longer ached, filling his water skin to the brim. Happiness is just ahead, he thought, just a little farther. When he reached the palms, he fell to his knees beside the pool. He dipped his hand into the water and froze. The water was thick, murky, filled with small bits of mud and leaves. It didn't glint in the sun. It looked dull, almost dirty. He lifted his hand to his mouth, hesitated, then took a small sip. It tasted bitter, earthy, nothing like the cool, clear water he'd imagined. Kai felt his hope crumble. He'd walked so far, endured so much, and this was what he'd found. Muddy, bitter water. He sat down on the sand, his back against a date palm, and stared at the pool. For a moment, he wanted to cry. He wanted to scream. He'd thought that water, clean, fresh water, would make him happy. But now that he'd found water, it wasn't what he'd hoped. It wasn't enough. "What's wrong with me?" he whispered. "Why can't I be happy? I have water. Isn't that what I wanted?" Just then, he heard a voice. Soft, Canlo. coming from behind the palm tree. The water is not the problem, traveler. Kai looked up. An old man was standing there, wearing a tattered robe, his face lined with the marks of years in the desert. He held a small clay bowl in his hands, and he was smiling, a calm, gentle smile. "Who are you?" Kai asked, his voice still hoarse. "I am Lao," the old man said. "I live here, by this pool. I saw you running toward it. I could see how thirsty you were." "I am thirsty," Kai said, "but this water, it's not what I wanted. It's muddy, it's bitter. I thought if I found water, I'd be happy, but I'm not." Lao sat down beside him, crossing his legs. He dipped his clay bowl into the pool, filling it with the murky water, then held it up to the sun. The light filtered through the water, turning the mud particles into tiny, glowing specks. "Look closely," Lao said. "What do you see?" Kai squinted. "Mud, leaves, dirty water." Lao shook his head. "Look again. Do you see the way the light dances in it? Do you see how it sustains the palms? Do you see that it's water? Water that will keep you alive." Kai looked. He saw the light, faint but real. He saw the roots of the date palms stretching down into the soil near the pool. He saw that, despite its murkiness, it was still water. Water that would quench his thirst, if he let it. That is the mistake. We think happiness is in perfect things, perfect water, perfect jobs, perfect lives. We chase these perfect things, thinking they will fill us up, but perfect things don't exist. All things are like this pool, a little murky, a little bitter, but still good, still enough. Kai thought about that. He thought about the city he'd left behind. He'd had a good life there, a loving family, a successful business, a comfortable home. But he'd always wanted more silk, more spices, more money. He'd thought that if he could trade for just a little more, he'd be happy. But he'd never been happy. He'd always been chasing the next thing, the perfect thing. "I've been chasing happiness my whole life," Kai said. "I thought it was somewhere else, in a new trade, a bigger house, a better life, but it's never there." "Why?" Lao took a sip from his bowl of murky water, closing his eyes as he swallowed. When he opened them, he said, "Happiness is not something you chase. It's something you carry. It's in the way you see the world, not in the world itself." You were so focused on finding perfect water that you couldn't see the good in what you had. You were so focused on what you didn't have that you forgot to be grateful for what you did. He handed the bowl to Kai. "Drink. Really, drink. Don't think about how it's not perfect. Think about how it's keeping you alive. Think about how lucky you are to have found it." Kai took the bowl. He held it in his hands, feeling its warmth. He looked at the murky water, at the tiny glowing specks of mud. He took a small sip. It was still bitter, still muddy, but this time he tasted something else. He tasted relief. He tasted gratitude. He tasted the miracle of water in a desert. He took another sip, then another. He drank until the bowl was empty, then dipped it again. This time, he didn't hesitate. He drank slowly, savoring each sip, feeling the water cool his dry throat, feeling his strength return. "When you were walking," Lao said, "you thought about your home. What did you miss most about it?" Kai thought. "My family, the sound of my children's laughter, the way my wife smiles when I come home." "Did you have those things when you left?" Lao asked. "Yes," Kai said. "Then why did you leave?" Lao asked. "To chase more silk, more spices, to chase a happiness you already had. Kai felt a pang of guilt. He'd left his family to trade, yes, but he'd also left because he'd thought that more success would make him happier. He'd thought that happiness was in the things he could buy, the things he could accumulate. But now, sitting beside a murky pool in the desert, he realized he'd been wrong. The Buddha said that desire is the root of suffering, Lao said. Not the desire to eat or drink or love. Those are natural. But the desire for more, for perfect, for something that's not here. That's the desire that makes us unhappy. We want the water to be clearer, the house to be bigger, the life to be easier. And so we miss the good that's right in front of us. Lao stood up, brushing sand from his robe. He pointed to the date palms, their branches heavy with fruit. Those palms don't complain that the water is murky, he said. They drink it. They grow. They bear fruit. They are happy because they don't chase perfect. They just be. Kai looked at the palms. He saw the dates, ripe and golden. He thought about how they'd grown, despite the harsh desert, despite the murky water. He thought about how he'd been like a palm that refused to drink, because the water wasn't perfect. I've been refusing to drink, Kai said. Lao smiled. Yes, but now you're drinking. Now you're seeing. Over the next 2 days, Kai stayed with Lao. He drank from the murky pool, ate ripe dates from the palms, and listened to Lao talk about the desert, about how it taught patience, about how it taught gratitude, about how it taught that happiness is not in what you have, but in how you see what you have. On the 3rd morning, Kai packed his things. His water skin was full of the murky pool water, and he'd filled a pouch with dates. He stood in front of Lao, bowing deeply. "Thank you," he said. "You've taught me more than I could ever learn in a city. I thought I was chasing happiness, but I was just running away from it. I thought it was in perfect things, but it's in the murky, bitter, beautiful things, the things that are real." Lao nodded. "Remember this, traveler. When you go back to your city, you will see many things that seem imperfect. A messy house, a delayed trade, an argument with a friend. But don't chase perfect. Drink the murky water. Eat the ripe dates. Be grateful for what you have. That is where happiness lives." Kai walked away from the oasis, his steps lighter than they'd been in weeks. The sun was still hot, the sand still dusty, but he didn't mind. He held his water skin in his hand, feeling its weight, knowing it was enough. He thought about his family, and this time, he didn't think about what he'd left behind. He thought about what he was coming home to when he finally reached his city. Weeks later, he was tired but peaceful. His wife ran to him, hugging him tightly, her eyes filled with tears. His children clung to his legs, laughing and asking him to tell them stories of the desert. That evening, as they sat in their courtyard, eating fresh fruit and drinking cool water from the river, his wife said, "You seem different, Kai, calmer, happier." Kai smiled. He told her about the desert, about the murky pool, about Lao. He told her about how he'd learned that happiness wasn't in more silk or more spices, but in the people he loved, the roof over his head, the water in his cup. "I used to think happiness was something I had to find," he said. "But it's not. It's something I had all along. I just couldn't see it. I was too busy chasing perfect." His wife took his hand. "I'm glad you found your way back," she said. "I didn't find my way back," Kai said. "I found my way home, to the happiness that was already here." In the years that followed, Kai still traded silk and spices, but he didn't chase more the way he used to. He spent more time with his family, more time sitting in his courtyard, more time noticing the small, imperfect things, the way his daughter's hair fell in her face when she read, the way his son laughed too loud at bad jokes, the way the river sounded at night, even when it was muddy after rain, and whenever he felt the old restlessness, the urge to chase something more, something perfect, he would close his eyes and remember the murky pool in the desert. He would remember the taste of that bitter, muddy water and how it had been enough, how it had been good. That's the lesson of the thirsty traveler, isn't it? We are all Kai in some way. We chase perfect jobs, perfect relationships, perfect lives, thinking they will make us happy. We look for happiness in the future, in the distance, in something we don't have. But happiness is not in the perfect things. It's in the messy, the murky, the real things, the water that quenches our thirst, even if it's not clear. The family that loves us, even if they annoy us. The life we have, even if it's not the one we imagined. The Buddha taught that contentment is the greatest wealth. Contentment isn't about having everything you want. It's about wanting what you have. It's about looking at your life with all its flaws, all its misances, and saying, this is enough. This is good. Think about your own life. What are you chasing right now? A better job, a bigger house, a perfect relationship. Do you think that if you get those things, you'll be happy? Or do you already have things in your life that are enough? A warm bed, a good meal, a friend who listens, a moment of quiet in the morning. Kai learned that happiness isn't in the water you chase. It's in the water you already have, if you're willing to drink it, even if it's murky. It's in the life you already live, if you're willing to see it, even if it's not perfect. As you listen to this, take a moment to think about what you're grateful for. Not the big, perfect things, the small, real things. The feel of your bed beneath you, the sound of your breath, the fact that you're alive right now in this moment. These things are your murky pool. They are enough. They are good. You don't have to chase happiness. It's not somewhere else. It's here in the life you already have. It's in the way you see the world, not in the world itself. Let's take a deep breath in and out. Feel the air fill your lungs, cool and fresh. Feel the calm that comes from knowing you are enough, just as you are. Feel the happiness that's already here, waiting for you to notice it, like a murky pool in the desert, like a date palm in the sand, like a family waiting for you at home. We'll move to our next story soon, but for now, just stay here. Stay with this feeling of contentment. Stay with the knowledge that you don't need to chase anything. You just need to be here, now, with what you have, and that is more than enough. Let's carry the quiet contentment of Kai's desert lesson with us, leaving the golden sand and murky oasis behind as we walk to a small courtyard in a town nestled between green valleys. This courtyard belongs to a gardener named Chen, a man with calloused hands, a face softened by years of smiling at flowers, and a garden that was the talk of the town. Not because it was perfect, far from it, but because in Chen's garden, every plant, every flower, even every weed, seemed to thrive in a way that felt like magic. Chen had tended this garden for over 40 years. He'd inherited it from his father, who'd inherited it from his grandfather, and each generation had added something: a row of peonies, a small pond with lotus flowers, a trellis where grapes grew heavy in the summer. But the most special thing about Chun's garden wasn't the flowers or the grapes. It was the way Chen tended it, with patience, with curiosity, and with a kindness that seemed to extend even to the weeds. One spring, a young boy named Lin came to Chun's door, carrying a small basket of vegetables his mother had sent. Lin was 12, with bright eyes and an eager heart, and he'd always been fascinated by Chun's garden. He'd stand outside the gate for hours, watching Chen water the flowers, prune the bushes, or sit on a stone bench eating his lunch. "Mr. Chen," Lin said, when Chen opened the door, "my mother said I could ask you something. Do you think you could teach me to garden? I want to grow flowers like yours, perfect ones." Chen smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Perfect flowers? Huh. Come in, Lin. Let's walk." Lin followed Chen into the garden, his eyes wide. He saw roses climbing up the walls, their petals soft and red, lilies floating on the pond, their white blooms glowing in the sunlight, and rows of vegetables, carrots, tomatoes, lettuce, growing straight and strong. But then he saw something else: weeds, small, green, unruly weeds growing between the roses, around the lilies, and even in the vegetable beds. Lin frowned. "Mr. Chen, why do you have weeds in your garden? They're ugly. They take water and sunlight from the good plants. Shouldn't you pull them out?" Chen knelt down beside a rose bush, where a small weed was growing next to the stem. He gently touched the weed's leaves, which were soft and fuzzy. "What makes you think they're bad plants, Lin?" he asked. "Because they're not flowers," Lin said. "They don't look pretty. They don't give fruit or vegetables. They just grow." Chen nodded. "Let me tell you a story. When I was your age, my father taught me to garden. He told me that weeds were the enemy, that they would ruin the garden if I didn't pull them out right away. So I did. Every morning, I'd go into the garden with a small trowel, and I'd dig up every weed I saw. I pulled them out by the roots, and I threw them away. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was making the garden perfect." He paused, looking at the weed beside the rose. But then something happened. The roses stopped blooming as much. The vegetables started to get sick. The soil, which had always been dark and rich, turned hard and dry. I didn't understand. I was pulling out the weeds. Why was the garden dying? Lin leaned in, curious. "What did your father say?" Chen smiled. "He took me by the hand, and he knelt down, just like we are now. He pointed to a weed that I'd missed, a small one, with tiny blue flowers. 'Look closely,' he said. 'This weed's roots go deep into the soil. They break up the hard dirt so the good plant's roots can grow. Its leaves, when they fall, turn into compost, which feeds the soil. Even the tiny flowers feed the bees, which help the roses bloom.'" He looked at Lin. "I didn't see any of that. I only saw a bad plant. I only saw something that didn't fit my idea of perfect. But the weed wasn't the enemy. It was helping the garden in ways I couldn't see." Lin stared at the weed. He'd never thought about weeds like that. He'd always seen them as something to get rid of, messy, ugly, useless. But now, looking at it, he saw the soft leaves, the way it was growing right next to the rose, like it was keeping it company. "But what if the weeds grow too much?" Lin asked. What if they take over the garden? Chen laughed, a warm, gentle sound. Ah, that's the trick. You don't let them take over. But you don't get rid of them entirely either. You learn to live with them. You learn to see their purpose. For example, he pointed to a row of lettuce where a few tall weeds were growing. Those weeds are taller than the lettuce. They shade the lettuce from the hot sun so it doesn't wilt. When the lettuce is ready to harvest, I'll cut those weeds down, but I'll leave their roots in the soil to feed it for next year. He stood up, brushing dirt off his knees. Life is like this garden, Lin. We all have weeds, the hard parts, the messy parts, the things that don't fit our idea of perfect. A fight with a friend, a mistake we made, a feeling of sadness or anger. We want to pull them out, to get rid of them, because we think they're ruining our perfect life. But just like the weeds in the garden, those hard things have a purpose. They teach us. They help us grow. They make us stronger. Lin thought about that. He thought about the time he'd forgotten his lines in the school play. He'd been so embarrassed, he'd wanted to run off the stage, to pretend. But afterward, his teacher had said, "Mistakes are how we learn. Next time, you'll practice more and you'll be better." And she was right. The next time he was in a play, he'd practiced until he knew his lines by heart, and he'd done great. He thought about his little sister, who sometimes broke his toys or stole his snacks. He'd get angry at her, and he'd wish she'd just go away. But then, when he was sad, she'd bring him her favorite teddy bear, or she'd sing him a silly song. Those weeds of anger were part of their relationship, but so was the love. The Buddha taught that suffering is a part of life, Chen said, as they walked toward the pond. But he didn't say we have to fight it. He said we have to learn from it. Just like the garden needs weeds to stay healthy, we need hard times to stay human. They don't make us bad or broken. They make us whole. They stopped by the pond, where lotus flowers were floating on the surface. Lin noticed that the lotus plants were growing out of the mud at the bottom of the pond, thick, dark, messy mud. "The lotus is my favorite flower," Chen said, following Lin's gaze. "Do you know why? Because it grows from mud. It doesn't grow in clean, perfect water. It grows in the mess. And yet, it becomes something so beautiful. That's what we can be. Lin, we can grow from the mess, the weeds, the mud, the hard times, and become something beautiful, too." Over the next few months, Lin came to the garden every afternoon after school. Chen taught him to plant seeds, to water the flowers, and to prune the bushes. But most importantly, Chen taught him to look at the weeds differently. He taught Lin to notice how the weeds helped the garden, how they broke up the soil, how they fed the bees, how they shaded the small plants. One day, Lin was working in the vegetable bed, pulling out a few weeds that were growing too close to the tomatoes. He was careful not to pull out all of them, just the ones that were crowding the plants. Chen walked over, carrying a basket of ripe strawberries. "You're learning," Chen said, handing Lin a strawberry. Lin took a bite, sweet, juicy, perfect. "I used to think the garden would be better without weeds," he said. "But now I see it's better with them. They make the flowers brighter, the vegetables tastier. They make the garden whole." Chen nodded. "And that's how it is with life. The hard times, the mistakes, the weeds, they make the good times sweeter. They make us appreciate the happiness more. Without them, we'd be like a garden with no weeds, pretty but empty. no depth, no growth. That summer, Lin's mother let him plant a small garden in their backyard. He planted sunflowers, tomatoes, and carrots. And when the weeds started to grow, Lin didn't get angry. He didn't pull them all out. He let some of them grow, the ones that helped the plants, the ones that added to the garden. When the sunflowers bloomed tall, bright, beautiful, Lin called Chen over to see. Chen stood in the backyard, looking at the sunflowers, the tomatoes, and the few weeds that were growing between them. "It's perfect," Chen said. Lin smiled. "It's not perfect. There are weeds. The tomatoes are a little small, but it's mine, and it's whole." Chen put his hand on Lin's shoulder. "That's the best kind of perfect, Lin. The kind that's whole, weeds and all." As the years passed, Lin grew up. He went to school, he got a job, he started a family of his own. But he never forgot Chun's garden, and he never forgot the lesson of the weeds. Whenever he faced a hard time, a job loss, a fight with his wife, a sickness in the family, he thought of the weeds in the garden. He thought of how they helped the garden grow, how they made it whole. He thought of the lotus growing from the mud, and instead of fighting the hard times, instead of trying to make his life perfect by getting rid of the mess, he learned to sit with it. He learned to see the purpose in the pain. He learned to grow from the mud. That's the lesson of the weeds in the garden, isn't it? We spend so much of our lives trying to make everything perfect. Our homes, our jobs, our relationships, ourselves. We try to pull out the weeds of sadness, anger, mistake, and failure because we think they make us broken. But the truth is, those weeds are what make us human. They're what make us whole, the Buddha said. Life is suffering, but suffering is temporary. It is a teacher, not an enemy. The hard times, the weeds, don't last forever, but the lessons they teach us do. They teach us patience. They teach us resilience. They teach us to appreciate the good times because we know they don't last forever either. Think about your own life. What are your weeds? Is it a mistake you made at work? A relationship that ended badly? A feeling of not being good enough? Do you try to push those things away, to pretend they don't exist? Or do you let them teach you? Do you let them help you grow? Chun's garden wasn't perfect, but it was alive. It was thriving. It was whole. And that's what we can be. Not perfect, but alive. Not without pain, but with purpose. Not without weeds, but with growth. The next time you see a weed in your life, a hard time, a mistake, a feeling of sadness, stop, take a breath, look at it closely. What is it teaching you? How is it helping you grow? How is it making you whole? You don't have to pull it out. You don't have to fight it. You just have to let it be. And in that letting be, you'll find something beautiful, a strength you didn't know you had, a wisdom you didn't know you needed, a happiness that's deeper than any perfect life could ever be. As you listen to this, take a moment to breathe. Feel the weight of your body against the bed. Feel the calm that comes from knowing you don't have to be perfect. Feel the strength that comes from knowing your weeds are part of you and that they make you whole. We'll move to our next story soon, but for now, just stay here. Stay with this feeling of acceptance. Stay with the knowledge that your life, weeds and all, is beautiful. Stay with the peace that comes from letting be. That's the wisdom of the weeds in the garden. That's the wisdom of Buddhist principles for daily happiness. Let's carry the gentle acceptance of Chun's garden with us. The quiet wisdom of weeds and mud and wholeness as we turn our steps to a narrow cobblestone lane in an old town. This lane winds past houses with wooden shutters and small windows, and when the sun sets, it grows dark quickly. No street lamps, no bright signs, just the soft glow of candles from inside the homes and the faint moonlight that filters through the rooftops. For years, the people of the lane had grown used to a strange sight every evening. As the sky turned from blue to purple, a blind man named Wong would walk down the lane, carrying a lit lantern in his hand. Mr. Wong had lost his sight when he was a young man, in an accident with a falling beam at the carpenter's shop where he worked. But he never let his blindness stop him. He knew the lane like the back of his hand, could tell which house was which by the sound of the doors, the smell of the cooking, even the way the wind blew through the windows. The children of the lane would often stop and stare. Sometimes they'd giggle. Why does the blind man carry a lamp? They'd ask their parents. He can't see the light. It's useless. Their parents would shake their heads, not knowing what to say. Some thought Mr. Wong was lonely, and the lamp was a way to feel less alone. Others thought he was stubborn, holding on to a habit from when he could still see. No one really understood. One evening, a young scholar named Yu moved into the lane. He'd come to the town to study old books at the temple library, and he'd rented a small room above the bakery. That first night, he was walking home from the library when he saw Mr. Wong coming down the lane, the lantern in his hand casting a warm golden light on the cobblestones. Yu stopped. He'd never seen anything like it. A blind man carrying a lamp. It seemed so strange, so pointless. Curious, he walked over to Mr. Wong. "Excuse me, sir," Yu said. "I don't mean to be rude, but why do you carry a lantern? You can't see the light. It doesn't help you." Mr. Wong stopped walking. He smiled a soft, knowing smile and held the lantern out a little so the light shone on Yu's face. "Young man, do you think the lamp is for me?" he asked. Tio frowned. "Well, who else is it for? If you can't see it, what good is it?" Mr. Wong laughed, a quiet, warm sound. "Let me ask you this. When you walk down this lane at night, what do you fear most?" Yu thought for a moment. "The dark, I suppose. It's easy to trip on the cobblestones, or to bump into someone, or to lose my way." "Exactly," Mr. Wong said. "Now, look around. Do you see the light from my lantern?" Yu looked. The light was shining on the cobblestones in front of them, making the cracks and bumps easy to see. It was shining on the doorways of the houses, so you could tell where one house ended and the next began. And it was shining on the faces of the people who were walking by, a mother carrying a basket of laundry, a young boy chasing a cat so they could see each other. "Too, the lamp isn't for me," Mr. Wong said. "It's for the people who walk with me. It lights their way so they don't trip. It helps them see me so they don't bump into me. And it makes the lane feel warmer, don't you think? Less dark, less lonely." Yu stared at the lantern. He'd never thought of it that way. He'd been so focused on what the lamp couldn't do, help Mr. Wong see, that he'd forgotten what it could do, help others. "But why do you care about that?" Yu asked. "You don't know these people. Why go out of your way to help them?" Mr. Wong started walking again, and Yu walked beside him, the lantern's light guiding their steps. "When I first lost my sight," Mr. Wong said, I was angry. I was scared. I thought my life was over. I wouldn't leave my house. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I felt like the world had forgotten me. He paused, his fingers brushing the handle of the lantern. Then, one day, an old woman from the lane came to see me. She brought me a bowl of hot soup, radish soup, my favorite, though I'd never told her that. She said, "Mr. Wong, the lane feels empty without you. Come out for a walk with me. I'll hold your arm." Mr. Wong smiled at the memory. I didn't want to go, but she was so kind, I couldn't say no. She held my arm, and we walked down the lane. She told me about the flowers that were blooming outside Mrs. Lee's house, about the new baby that had been born next door, about the way the moon looked that night. For the first time since I'd lost my sight, I didn't feel alone. I felt like I was part of the lane again. He looked at you. That old woman taught me something. She taught me that kindness is like a lamp. It doesn't just light someone else's way, it lights yours, too. When you help someone, you don't just make their life better. You make your own life better. You feel less lonely. You feel like you matter. You feel happy. You thought about that. He was a scholar, used to spending his days alone with books. He'd never really thought about kindness, not as something that could make him happy. He'd thought happiness came from learning new things, from passing exams, from being praised for his work. But as he walked beside Mr. Wong, watching the light from the lantern make the lane feel warm and safe, he felt something new, a quiet, gentle happiness, the kind that comes from knowing you're doing something good. "Did the old woman ever tell you why she helped you?" you asked. Mr. Wong shook his head. "No, but I think I know. She'd lost her husband a few years before. She told me once that the loneliest days are the ones when you don't have anyone to care for. When you help someone else, you fill that empty space. You give yourself a reason to get up in the morning. You give your life meaning." They walked to the end of the lane, where Mr. Wong lived in a small house with a garden out front. Mr. Wong stopped and he blew out the lantern, carefully setting it down on the step. "Thank you for walking with me, young man," he said. "I hope you'll remember the lamp." You nodded. "I will. More than that, I think I'll start carrying one, too." Mr. Wong smiled. "That's the best part of kindness. It spreads. One lamp becomes two, two becomes three. Soon the whole lane is lit, and no one is lonely anymore." In the weeks that followed, you started carrying a lantern when he walked home from the library. At first, people stared at a young scholar carrying a lamp, just like the blind man. But then, something happened. A mother started carrying a lantern to walk her daughter to school in the morning. A baker started leaving a lantern outside his shop at night, so people could see the fresh bread in the window. A blacksmith started hanging a lantern above his door, so his customers could find him after dark. Slowly, the lane changed. It wasn't dark anymore. It wasn't lonely. People started stopping to talk to each other, over the light of a lantern, over a bowl of soup, over a story about the day. The children stopped giggling at Mr. Wong. Instead, they'd run up to him, asking if they could carry his lantern for him. One evening, Yu was walking home with his lantern when he saw Mr. Wong sitting on his step, talking to the old woman who'd helped him years before. The old woman was holding a lantern too, and the light from both lanterns was shining on their faces, making them look young and happy. Yu walked over. "Mr. Wong, I've been thinking," he said. You said kindness is like a lamp. But what if no one else carries a lamp? What if you're the only one being kind? Mr. Wong looked at him. Do you remember the first night we walked together? You asked me why I carried a lantern, even though I couldn't see it. What did I tell you? That it was for the people around you, you said. Mr. Wong nodded. Kindness isn't about getting something back. It's about giving, because giving makes you happy, whether anyone else gives back or not. Think about the sun. It shines every day, even when the clouds cover it. It doesn't ask for thanks. It just gives light, because that's what the sun does. Kindness is like that. You give it, not because you want something in return, but because that's what makes you feel alive. The old woman smiled. I learned that from my husband, she said. He was a farmer. Every year, when the harvest was good, he'd give extra grain to the families who didn't have enough. I'd ask him why we could have sold the grain, bought new clothes, fixed the roof. He'd say, the grain doesn't belong to us. It belongs to the earth. We're just keeping it for a while. And when you share it, the earth gives you more, not just grain, but happiness. You thought about the Buddha's teachings. He'd read about compassion, about wanting to ease the suffering of others. But he'd never really understood what that meant. Not until now. Compassion wasn't just a word in a book. It was carrying a lantern for someone else. It was giving grain to a hungry family. It was sitting with someone who was lonely and listening to their story. That night, you sat in his room above the bakery, thinking about Mr. Wong and the old woman and the lanterns. He thought about how lonely he'd felt when he first moved to the town, surrounded by strangers, buried in books. He thought about how much happier he'd felt since he'd started carrying a lantern, since he'd started stopping to talk to the people in the lane. He realized that happiness wasn't something he could find in a book. It wasn't something he could earn with exams or praise. It was something he could give to a stranger, to a friend, to someone who needed it. And when he gave it, he got it back 10 times over. The next morning, you went to the market. He bought a basket of fresh fruit, apples, pears, oranges, and he walked through the lane, giving a piece to everyone he saw. To the mother with the baby, to the baker, to the blacksmith, to the children who played in the street. He didn't ask for anything in return. He just smiled and said, "Good morning." And as he walked, he felt something he'd never felt before. A lightness in his chest, a warmth in his heart, a happiness that was bright and steady and real, like the light from a lantern. Years later, you became a teacher. He taught his students about the Buddha's teachings, but he didn't just read to them from books. He told them about Mr. Wong and the lantern. He told them about the old woman and the radish soup. He told them about the way kindness can light up a dark lane and a dark heart. And every evening, when the sun set, you would walk through the lane with a lantern in his hand. Sometimes he'd walk with Mr. Wong. Sometimes he'd walk with the children. Sometimes he'd walk alone. But no matter who he was with, he always felt happy, because he knew the truth that Mr. Wong had taught him. Kindness isn't just for others, it's for you. It's the light that guides your way even when the world is dark. That's the lesson of the blind man with a lamp, isn't it? We often think of happiness as something we take, something we get from a job, a relationship, a possession. But the Buddha taught that true happiness comes from giving, from being kind, from easing the suffering of others. Because when we give, we don't lose anything. We gain something, a connection to the people around us, a sense of purpose, a happiness that doesn't fade when things go wrong. Think about your own life. When was the last time you did something kind for someone else just because? Maybe you held the door open for a stranger. Maybe you listened to a friend who was sad. Maybe you gave a glass of water to someone who was thirsty. How did that make you feel? Did you feel happy? Did you feel light? Did you feel like you were part of something bigger than yourself? That's the magic of kindness. It's a lamp that lights up two lives, yours and the person you're helping. It's a way to turn a stranger into a friend, a dark moment into a bright one, a lonely heart into a full one. Mr. Wang couldn't see the light from his lantern, but he could feel it in the smiles of the people who walked with him, in the way they said good evening, in the warmth of the lane. He could feel the happiness that comes from giving, and so can we. The next time you're feeling sad or lonely or lost, try carrying a lantern. Do something kind for someone else. It doesn't have to be big. It can be small, a smile, a kind word, a helping hand to it. And watch how the light of happiness comes back to you as you listen to this. Take a moment to breathe. Feel the warmth of the lantern's light in your heart. Feel the kindness that's inside you waiting to be shared. Feel the happiness that comes from knowing you have the power to light up someone else's day. We'll move to our next story soon, but for now, just stay here. Stay with this feeling of kindness. Stay with the knowledge that you are a light. Stay with the peace that comes from giving. That's the wisdom of the blind man with a lamp. That's the wisdom of Buddhist principles for daily happiness. Let's carry the warm glow of Mr. Wang's lantern with us, that quiet light of kindness that connects us all. As we turn down a side street lined with wooden shops, the air here smells of pine and cedar, of sawdust that floats like tiny snowflakes in the sunlight, and of beeswax that glistens on polished wood. At the end of the street, there's a small workshop with a sign above the door. Master Lu's Carpentry. The sign is old, its paint faded, but the letters are carved with such care that you can tell the person who made it loved their work. Inside, Master Lu is hard at work. He's a man in his 60s, with hands that are rough from decades of holding tools, but fingers that move with the grace of a musician. His workshop is small but tidy, shelves lined with jars of nails and screws, walls hung with saws and chisels that shine like silver, and a large workbench in the center, where a half-finished table rests. Sunlight streams through a small window, lighting up the sawdust on the bench, and the only sounds are the soft scrape of a plane against wood and the occasional tap of a hammer. For the past 6 months, Master Lu has had an apprentice, a young man named Zhang. Zhang is 18, with an eager mind and a quick hand, but he's always in a hurry. He wants to make beautiful furniture, tables that people will admire, chairs that will last for generations, but he's so focused on finishing the piece that he often rushes through the work. He skips sanding the edges properly, hurries through applying the beeswax, and gets frustrated when a piece doesn't turn out perfect right away. One morning, Master Lu is sanding a piece of oak, his movements slow and steady. When Zhang storms into the workshop, he's holding a small stool he's been working on. The legs are uneven, the seat is lopsided, and the wood is marked with deep scratches from a chisel. He throws the stool onto the workbench, his face red with anger. "I can't do this," Zhang says, his voice tight. "It's supposed to be a simple stool, but it's terrible. The legs are too short on one side, the seat won't sit straight, and I keep making mistakes with the chisel. I'll never be a good carpenter." Master Lu stops sanding. He sets down his sandpaper, wipes his hands on a rag, and walks over to the stool. He doesn't touch it right away. He just looks at it, his eyes soft, like he's seeing something Zhang can't. "Tell me, Zhang," Master Lu says, his voice calm. "When you were making this stool, what were you thinking about?" Zhang frowns. "I was thinking about finishing it. I wanted it to be perfect, to show you that I can do this. But every time I tried, I messed up. I kept thinking, this has to be right, this has to be perfect, and then I'd rush and make more mistakes." Master Lu nods. He picks up the stool, turning it in his hands, running his fingers over the rough edges. "I see you were thinking about the end, about the finished stool, about what I would think of it. But you weren't thinking about the work itself, about the wood, about the tools, about each step you were taking." He sets the stool down and walks to a shelf in the corner. He pulls down a small box, its wood polished to a warm glow, and hands it to Zhang. "Open it," he says. Zhang opens the box. Inside, there are dozens of small pieces of wood, scraps, mostly, but each one is sanded smooth. Each one has a tiny mark carved into it, a date. He picks up one piece, a small strip of maple with the date spring 1978 carved into the edge. "What is this?" Zhang asks. "These are my first pieces," Master Lu says. "Every time I made a mistake, every lopsided stool, every uneven table, every piece that didn't turn out the way I wanted, I took a scrap of the wood and sanded it. I carved the date into it, and I kept it. This one," he points to, "the maple strip was from the first stool I ever made. It was even worse than yours. The legs were so short, it fell over if you breathed on it. I cried when I finished it. I thought I'd never be a carpenter, either." Zhang looks at the scrap of wood, then at Master Lu. "But you're the best carpenter in town," he says. "How did you get here?" Master Lu smiles. "I stopped thinking about the end. I started thinking about the work. Let me show you." He walks to the workbench and picks up a piece of pine rough, unshaped, still with the marks of the axe that cut it from the tree. He hands it to Zhang, along with a piece of sandpaper. "Sand this," he says. "But don't think about making it smooth. Think about how the wood feels under your hand. Think about the way the sandpaper catches on the rough spots. Think about the sawdust that falls onto the bench. Just sand." Zhang takes the wood and the sandpaper. He starts sanding, slowly at first. He thinks about what Master Lu said about the feel of the wood. It's rough, but there's a warmth to it, a grain that runs like a river through the pine. The sandpaper makes a soft, rhythmic sound as it moves, and he watches the sawdust fall, tiny golden flakes that land on the bench. For a moment, he forgets about the lopsided stool, about being a good carpenter, about all the things he thinks he should be. He just sands. When he's done, he hands the piece of wood back to Master Lu. It's not perfect. There are still a few rough spots, but it's smooth to the touch, and the grain of the wood shines in the sunlight. "Did you enjoy that?" Master Lu asks. Zhang nods. "I didn't think about finishing it. I just thought about the sanding. It felt calm." like I wasn't in a hurry anymore. That's the secret, Master Lu says. Carpentry isn't about making perfect furniture. It's about the work. It's about choosing the right piece of wood, about sharpening your tools until they shine, about sanding until the wood feels like silk under your hand, about applying the beeswax so slowly that it soaks into the grain. The finished piece is just a gift, a reminder of the work you did, but the happiness is in the work itself. He picks up the lopsided stool and sets it on the bench. He takes a chisel and a hammer, and he starts to fix the scratches, slow, careful taps, his eyes focused on the wood. When I first started, I thought happiness was in the furniture. I thought if I could make a perfect table, I'd be happy. But I learned that the perfect table never comes. There's always a scratch I didn't see, a leg that's a little uneven, a spot where the beeswax didn't set right. But that's okay, because the happiness isn't in the perfect table. It's in the hours I spent working on it, the way I poked to the wood, the way I felt the tools in my hands, the way I forgot about everything else except the work. Zhang watches Master Lu work. He sees the way Master Lu's eyes light up when he runs his finger over a smooth spot. He hears the way Master Lu hums softly to himself as he taps the chisel. He realizes that Master Lu isn't just fixing a stool, he's enjoying the process. He's not thinking about the end. He's thinking about the now. The Buddha talked about right effort, Master Lu says, without looking up. Not the kind of effort that's about rushing or forcing or trying to be perfect. The kind of effort that's about being present, about putting your whole heart into the work, even if it's hard, even if it doesn't turn out the way you want. That's the effort that brings happiness. Because when you're present in the work, you're not thinking about the past, about mistakes you made, or the future, about what might go wrong. You're just here, in the moment, doing what you love. That afternoon, Zhang starts over on the stool. He picks a new piece of wood, a strong, straight oak, and he takes his time. He sharpens his chisel until it can cut through paper. He measures the legs 3 times before he cuts them, making sure they're even. He sands the seat until it's smooth enough to run his hand over without catching. He applies the beeswax with a soft cloth, rubbing it into the wood slowly until the oak shines like honey. When he's done, the stool isn't perfect. One leg is still a little shorter than the others, just a fraction of an inch, and there's a small scratch on the seat that he didn't notice until it was too late. But when he looks at it, he doesn't feel anger or frustration. He feels proud, not because it's perfect, but because he put his whole heart into it. He enjoyed every step, the cutting, the sanding, the waxing. He was present. He carries the stool to Master Lu, who's sitting on a bench in the corner, drinking a cup of tea. Master Lu looks at the stool, then at Zhang. "How do you feel?" he asks. "Happy," Zhang says. "Not because it's perfect, because I worked hard, because I enjoyed the work." Master Lu nods. "That's the lesson, Zhang. Life is like carpentry. We spend so much time thinking about the end, about getting the perfect job, the perfect family, the perfect life, that we forget to enjoy the process. We rush through the days, worrying about the future, regretting the past, and we miss the happiness that's right there in the work, the way the sun feels on our face when we walk to work, the way a friend's laugh sounds over a cup of tea, the way it feels to to put your whole heart into something, even if it doesn't turn out the way you want. He takes a sip of tea. I once made a table for a family, a beautiful oak table, with a top that I sanded for 3 days, until it was so smooth it looked like glass. I was proud of that table. I thought it was perfect. But a year later, the family's little girl drew a picture on it with crayons. The mother was so upset, she apologized, said she'd pay to have it fixed. But I told her not to. That crayon drawing, it was better than any perfect table. It was a reminder that the table wasn't just wood and nails. It was a place where the family ate, where they talked, where they made memories. The perfect table would have been cold, empty. The one with the crayon drawing, it was alive. Jung thinks about that. He thinks about his own life, how he's always been in a hurry to grow up, to be successful, to have everything figured out. He's been so focused on the end that he's missed the small moments, the way his mother's soup tastes on a cold day, the way his friends tease him when he makes a mistake, the way it feels to hold a chisel in his hand and create something from nothing. I think I get it, Jung says. Happiness isn't in the finished piece, it's in the work. It's in the moments. Master Lu smiles. That's it. And the best part? The work never ends. There's always a new piece of wood to sand, a new chisel to sharpen, a new mistake to learn from. And every time you put your whole heart into the work, you find a little more happiness. In the months that follow, Jung changes. He doesn't rush anymore. He takes his time choosing wood, sharpening his tools, sanding until the wood feels like silk. He doesn't get angry when he makes a mistake. He just takes a deep breath, picks up his tools, and tries again. And slowly, his work gets better. Not because he's trying to be perfect, but because he's enjoying the process. One day, a woman comes to the workshop. She wants a cradle for her new baby, something simple but strong, something that will last. Jung volunteers to make it. He picks a piece of cherry wood, its grain soft and pink, and he works on it for weeks. He carves small flowers into the sides, not because he has to, but because he wants to. He sands the edges until they're smooth enough for a baby's hand to touch. He applies 3 coats of beeswax, rubbing each one in slowly until the wood glows. When he's done, he carries the cradle to the woman's house. She cries when she sees it. It's perfect, she says. Jung smiles. No, he says. It's just a cradle, but I made it with care. Later that night, he goes back to the workshop. He takes a small scrap of the cherry wood, sands it smooth, and carves the date into it. He puts it in the box with Master Lu's old scraps. It's not a perfect scrap. There's a small mark where he slipped with the sandpaper, but it's his. And when he looks at it, he feels happy, not because it's perfect, but because he put his whole heart into the work. That's the lesson of the carpenter's lesson, isn't it? We live in a world that's always pushing us to finish, to achieve, to be perfect. We're told that happiness is in the end result, in the promotion, the marriage, the big house, the perfect life. But the Buddha taught us that happiness is in the path, not the destination. It's in the small, everyday moments. The way we hold a tool, the way we talk to a friend, the way we put our whole heart into something, even if it doesn't turn out the way we want. Think about your own life. What are you rushing to finish? A project at work, a degree, a to-do list that never ends. Are you so focused on the end that you're missing the process, the way the sun comes through your window in the morning, the way a good song makes you tap your foot, the way it feels to work hard at something you care about. Master Lu didn't become a great carpenter because he made perfect furniture. He became a great carpenter because he loved the work. He loved the feel of the wood, the sound of the tools, the rhythm of the process. And that love, that presence, made his work great. It made his life happy. The same is true for us. We don't need to have perfect lives to be happy. We just need to be present in the work of living. We need to slow down, to notice the small moments, to put our whole heart into whatever we're doing, whether it's sanding a piece of wood, making a cup of tea, or talking to a loved one. Happiness isn't in the finished stool, or the perfect table, or the cradle that makes a mother cry. It's in the sanding, the cutting, the waxing. It's in the work. It's in the now. As you listen to this, take a moment to breathe. Feel the rhythm of your breath, in, out, slow and steady. Think about one thing you're doing today, something small, something ordinary. Maybe it's making breakfast, or walking to the store, or typing an email. Instead of rushing to finish it, think about the process. Think about how it feels, how it sounds, how it smells. Put your whole heart into it. That's where happiness lives, not in the end. In the work, in the moment. We'll move to our next story soon, but for now, just stay here. Stay with this feeling of presence. Stay with the knowledge that the work itself is the gift. Stay with the peace that comes from slowing down and putting your whole heart into the now. That's the wisdom of the carpenter's lesson. That's the wisdom of Buddhist principles for daily happiness. Presence in the work, the warmth of hands on wood as we walk to a coastal town where the sea breeze carries the salt scent of waves and the sound of seagulls mixes with the crash of water on sand. This town is home to a merchant named Tao, a man who deals in rare and precious things, silk from the east, spices from the south, and gems that glow like captured starlight. Tao is wealthy. He lives in a house with a red-tiled roof and a garden filled with exotic flowers. But anyone who knows him will tell you he is never happy. Tao's greatest treasure is a pearl, not just any pearl, a South Sea pearl, as large as a pigeon's egg, with a luster that shifts from soft pink to silver when it catches the light. He'd bought it 10 years earlier from a sailor who'd found it in a clamshell at the bottom of the ocean. Tao kept it in a velvet box on his bedside table, and every night before he slept, he'd open the box and stare at it. "This pearl is my happiness," he'd say to himself. "With it, I have something no one can take away. Without it, I have nothing." He was so afraid of losing the pearl that he rarely left his house. He hired guards to stand at his gate. He locked his bedroom door 3 times each night, and he never let anyone else touch the velvet box. His friends would invite him to walk along the beach at sunset, or to share a meal of fresh fish at the town's tavern, but he'd always decline. "I can't leave the pearl," he'd say. "What if someone steals it? What if something happens to it?" His wife, May, would shake her head. "Tao, the pearl is just a stone," she'd say. "Happiness is not in a pearl. It's in the time we spend together, in the sound of the waves, in the taste of fresh bread from the baker. You're missing all of it because you're too busy guarding a pearl." But Tao didn't listen. He thought May didn't understand. The pearl was his security, his joy, his reason for living. Then, One morning, Tao woke up early. The sun was just rising, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, and he reached for the velvet box on his bedside table, but it was gone. Tao's heart stopped. He sat up, staring at the empty space where the box had been. He checked under the bed, in the drawers of his dresser, in the closet, but the box was nowhere to be found. He threw on his clothes and ran downstairs, yelling for his guards. "Where is it?" he shouted, his voice shaking. "My pearl, the velvet box. Did you see anyone? Did you let someone in?" The guards looked at each other, confused. "Master Tao, no one came through the gate last night," one said. "We didn't hear anything. We didn't see anything." Tao ran through the house, tearing open cabinets, flipping through books, knocking over vases. May heard the noise and came into the room, her eyes wide. "Tao, what's wrong? What are you doing?" "The pearl is gone," Tao said, his voice breaking. "Someone stole it. I can't find it anywhere. My happiness, it's gone." May put her hand on his arm, trying to calm him. "Tao, breathe. Let's think. Did you take it anywhere yesterday? Did you show it to anyone?" Tao closed his eyes, trying to remember. He'd spent the entire day in his study, counting his coins and sorting through his gemstones. He'd taken the pearl out of the box once, to hold it in his hand, but he'd put it back right away. He'd locked his bedroom door before he went to sleep. He'd checked it 3 times. "I didn't take it anywhere," he said. "I didn't show it to anyone. It must have been stolen. I have to find it. I have to get it back." For the next 3 days, Tao searched the town. He went to the market, asking every merchant if they'd seen a pearl like his. He went to the tavern, questioning the sailors and the fishermen. He went to the beach, walking up and down the sand, hoping someone had dropped the velvet box. He offered a reward, a bag of gold coins, to anyone who could find his pearl. But no one came forward. Each night he came home exhausted and empty. He didn't eat. He didn't sleep. He just sat in his study, staring at the empty velvet box, feeling like a part of himself had been cut away. On the 4th day, May took him by the hand and led him to the beach. The sun was setting, and the sky was a mix of pink and gold. The waves were gentle, rolling onto the sand and then pulling back, leaving small shells and pieces of seaweed in their wake. A few children were playing in the sand, building castles and chasing each other. "Tao, sit with me," May said, leading him to a driftwood log. They sat down, and for a long time they didn't speak. They just listened to the waves and watched the sun sink lower in the sky. Finally, May said, "When we first got married, you used to bring me here every evening. You'd pick up seashells for me, the ones with the pretty colors, and you'd tell me stories about the places you'd traveled. You were happy then. You didn't have the pearl yet. Where did that happiness go?" Tao looked at her. He thought about those days, the sound of May's laugh, the feel of the sand between his toes, the way the sun felt on his face. He'd been happy then, hadn't he? Happy without the pearl, without the wealth, without all the things he'd thought he needed. "I don't know," he said, quietly. "I thought the pearl would make me happier. I thought it would keep me safe. But now that it's gone, I realize I was never happy with it. I was just afraid of losing it." May nodded. "The pearl didn't give you happiness, Tao. It gave you fear. Fear of losing it. Fear of someone stealing it. Fear that without it, you were nothing. But you're not nothing. You're a husband, a friend, A man who once knew how to laugh at the waves and collect seashells. That's who you are, not the man who guards a pearl. Just then, a small girl ran up to them. She was about 5 years old, with messy brown hair and a grubby face, and she was holding something in her hand. "Excuse me," she said, looking up at Tao. "Is this yours? I found it in the sand this morning, near your house." Tao looked down. In the girl's hand was his velvet box. His heart raced. He took the box from her, his hands shaking, and opened it. There, inside, was his pearl glowing pink and silver in the sunset light. "You found it," Tao said, his voice filled with relief. "Where? How?" The girl smiled. "I was playing in your garden yesterday. I saw the box on your windowsill. It was open a little, and the pearl was shining. I wanted to show it to my mom, so I took it, but I dropped it in the sand on my way home. I found it this morning, and I knew it was yours, so I brought it back." Tao looked at the pearl. It was still beautiful, still as shiny as it had ever been, but as he held it in his hand, he didn't feel the joy he'd expected. He didn't feel the security. He just felt tired. Tired of worrying, tired of being afraid, tired of missing out on life because he was too busy guarding a stone. He closed the velvet box and handed it to May. "Here," he said. "Take it. I don't want it anymore." May looked at him, surprised. "Tao, are you sure? It's your most precious treasure." "It's not a treasure," Tao said. "It's a reminder. A reminder that I was looking for happiness in the wrong place. I thought it was in a pearl, in gold, in things I could hold, but it's not. It's here with you, on this beach, watching the sunset. It's in the days we spend together, in the small things. I lost that happiness when I found the pearl, but now I think I've found it again." The girl smiled and ran back to her mother, who was waving from a few feet away. Tao and May sat on the driftwood log, watching the sun set below the horizon. The waves crashed gently on the sand, and the seagulls flew overhead, crying softly. For the first time in years, Tao felt calm. He felt whole. He felt happy. The next day, Tao went to the market. He sold his pearl to a merchant who collected rare gems, and with the money, he bought a small boat. He and May started going fishing every morning, something they'd done when they first got married, but had forgotten about over the years. They'd come home with fresh fish, which May would cook for dinner, and they'd sit on their porch, eating and talking about their day. Tao started going to the tavern with his friends again. He'd share a tankard of ale with the sailors and listen to their stories about the sea. He'd walk along the beach with May in the evenings, picking up seashells and watching the sunset. He didn't miss the pearl. He didn't miss the fear. He only missed the time he'd wasted, chasing something that had never been able to give him what he needed. One evening, as they sat on the beach, May said, "You know, the Buddha once said that the mind is like a mirror. It reflects whatever is in front of it. If you hold a pearl in front of it, it reflects a pearl. If you hold the sunset in front of it, it reflects the sunset. You are holding a pearl in front of your mind for so long, you forgot to look at the sunset." Tao smiled. "I see that now. I was so focused on the pearl, on the thing I thought would make me happy, that I didn't see the happiness that was right in front of me. The pearl was never lost. May took his hand, but you found your way back. That's what matters. That's the lesson of the lost pearl, isn't it? We're all like Tao, sometimes. We spend our lives chasing pearls, money, power, fame, possessions, thinking they'll make us happy. We guard them. We worry about losing them. We let them take over our lives. But the truth is, happiness isn't in the pearl. It's in the moments we miss while we're chasing it. The sunset on the beach, the sound of a friend's laugh, the feel of a loved one's hand in ours. The Buddha taught that happiness is not found in external things, but within the mind. We already have everything we need to be happy. We just forget. We get so caught up in chasing what we don't have that we forget to appreciate what we do have. We think happiness is something we have to find somewhere else, but it's not. It's already inside us, waiting to be remembered. Think about your own pearl. What are you chasing right now? Is it a promotion at work? A bigger house? A new car? Do you think that once you get it, you'll be happy? Or have you already had moments of happiness? Moments with friends? Moments in nature? Moments of quiet peace that you've forgotten about because you're too busy chasing something else? Tao lost his pearl, but in losing it, he found something better, himself. He found the happiness he'd been missing for years, and we can do the same. We don't have to lose our pearls to find happiness. We just have to stop focusing on them. We have to look up, look around, and see the happiness that's already there. The pearl is a beautiful thing, but it's just a thing. It can't love you. It can't laugh with you. It can't sit with you on a beach and watch the sunset. Those things, the people, the moments, the feelings, are the real treasures. They're the things that make life worth living. They're the things that bring true happiness. As you listen to this, take a moment to close your eyes if you haven't already. Breathe in the air around you. Feel it fill your lungs, cool and fresh. Think about one moment of happiness you've had recently. A small moment, maybe one you forgot about. It could be the taste of a good cup of coffee, the sound of rain on the roof, the hug of a friend. Hold that moment in your mind. Feel the warmth of it. That's your happiness. It's not in a pearl. It's in you. We'll move to our next story soon, but for now, just stay here. Stay with that moment of happiness. Stay with the knowledge that you already have everything you need to be happy. Stay with the peace that comes from letting go of the pearls and embracing the moments. That's the wisdom of the lost pearl. That's the wisdom of Buddhist principles for daily happiness. Let's carry the soft peace of Tao's beach sunset with us, that quiet realization that happiness lives in the moments, not the things, as we walk to a wide, slow-moving river that winds through a valley. The river is bordered by willow trees, their branches dipping into the water, and in the spring, when the snow melts in the mountains, the water rises, turning the gentle current into something stronger, something that rushes over the stones and carries small sticks and leaves along with it. This river is crossed by a narrow wooden bridge, just a few planks nailed together. No rails, no sides, and it's here that two monks, Shi Wen and Shi Hu, often walk on their way to the small village on the other side. Shi Wen is the older of the two, a monk in his 50s, with a calm face and a slow, steady way of speaking. He's lived in the nearby temple for over 30 years, and he's learned to see the world with kindness, not as a place of right and wrong, but as a place of people doing their best, even when they stumble. Shi Hu is younger, in his 20s, with a sharp mind and a strict sense of duty. He's only been at the temple for 2 years, and he takes the temple's rules very seriously, maybe too seriously. He believes that monks should be pure, should avoid temptation, should never do anything that might taint their spiritual path. He often judges the people in the village for their worldly ways, and he even judges Shi Wen sometimes for being too soft, too willing to bend the rules. One spring morning, the 2 monks set out for the village. They needed to collect food for the temple: rice, vegetables, dried fruit, and to visit an old woman who lived on the edge of the village, who was sick and needed someone to read to her. The walk to the river was quiet, the air filled with the smell of blooming willows and fresh grass. But when they reached the bridge, they stopped. The river had risen overnight. The water was high, rushing over the banks, and the wooden bridge was half submerged. The planks were slippery with mud, and the current was so strong that you could see small stones being carried downstream. It looked dangerous, too dangerous to cross. "We can't walk over the bridge," Shi said, frowning. "It's too risky. We'll have to turn back." Shi Wen shook his head. He looked at the river, then at the village on the other side, which was just visible through the trees. "The old woman is waiting for us," he said, "and the village has the food we need. We have to cross. Maybe we can wade through the water. It's not that deep, from what I can see." Shi hesitated. The temple's rules said that monks should keep their robes clean, should avoid unnecessary contact with water or dirt. Wading through a river would mean getting his robes wet, getting mud on his feet. It would mean breaking the rules. But before he could argue, they heard a voice, a woman's voice, soft and worried. They turned around and saw a young woman standing on the bank behind them. She was wearing a blue dress, and she was carrying a basket of eggs. Her eyes were wide, and she looked like she was about to cry. "Excuse me," she said, walking over to them. "I need to get to the village. My mother is sick, and these eggs are for her. But the bridge, I can't cross it. The water is too high, and I can't wade through. My dress will get wet, and I'll drop the eggs, and my mother needs them. What am I going to do?" Shi stepped back. He didn't know what to do. The temple's rules said that monks should not touch women, not even to help them. It was a rule meant to avoid temptation, to keep monks focused on their spiritual path. But the woman looked so desperate. He felt a conflict in his heart between the rule and the desire to help. Shi Wen, however, didn't hesitate. He walked over to the woman and smiled. "Don't worry," he said. "I'll carry you across. That way, your dress won't get wet, and you won't drop the eggs. It's the least we can do." The woman's face lit up. "Thank you," she said. "Thank you so much." Shi Wen knelt down, and the woman climbed onto his back. She held the basket of eggs tightly, and Shi Wen stood up. He walked carefully into the river, the water reaching his knees. The current pushed against him, but he was strong, and he kept his balance. Shi stood on the bank, watching, his jaw tight. He couldn't believe what Shi Wen was doing, breaking the rule, touching a woman, getting his robes wet. It was wrong. It was impure. When Shi Wen reached the other side, he set the woman down gently. She handed him an egg as a thank you, but he shook his head. "Keep it for your mother," he said. The woman smiled and walked toward the village. Shi Wen waded back across the river, his robes dripping wet, his feet covered in mud. When he reached the bank, Shi was waiting for him, his face angry. "How could you do that?" Shi said. "You broke the temple's rule. You touched a woman. You got your robes dirty. That's not what a monk should do. Shi Wen looked at him. He didn't look angry or defensive. He just looked calm. I carried her across the river, he said. That's all. I helped her. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? Shi Hu repeated. The rules say we shouldn't touch women. It's a sin. It's a distraction from our spiritual path. Shi Wen sat down on a rock and began to wring out his robes. Tell me, Shi Hu, he said. When I carried her across the river, who was heavier, the woman or the judgment in your heart? Shi Hu frowned. What do you mean? I mean this, Shi Wen said. I carried her for a few minutes. My back was tired, but when I set her down, the weight was gone. But you're still carrying the judgment. You're still angry, still upset, still clinging to the idea that what I did was wrong. That weight is heavier, isn't it? It's weighing on your heart, even now. Shi Hu didn't say anything. He thought about it. He thought about how angry he'd felt when Shi Wen carried the woman, how his mind had raced, how his chest had felt tight. He thought about how that anger was still there, even though the woman was long gone, even though Shi Wen had done nothing more than help her. He realized that Shi Wen was right. The judgment was heavier. It was a weight he couldn't shake. The Buddha taught us to be compassionate, Shi Wen said, still wringing out his robes. Compassion isn't following rules blindly. It's seeing someone in need and helping them, even if it means bending a rule, even if it means getting your robes dirty. Compassion is letting go of judgment, letting go of right and wrong, and just seeing the person in front of you. The woman wasn't a temptation. She was a daughter, worried about her mother. She needed help, and we were there to give it. Shi Hu thought about the temple's rules. He'd always thought they were there to protect monks from the world, to keep them pure, to keep them focused. But now, he wondered if he'd been following the rules for the wrong reason. He'd been following them to avoid sin, to avoid judgment, but he'd forgotten the heart of the rules, to be kind, to be helpful, to be compassionate. They crossed the river, then Shi Wen first, then Shi Hu wading through the water, their robes getting wet. When they reached the other side, they walked to the village. They collected the food from the merchant, who gave them extra rice as a gift, because he remembered how Shi Wen had helped his daughter last year when she'd fallen and hurt her knee. Then they went to the old woman's house. The old woman was lying in bed, her face pale, but she smiled when she saw them. Shi Wen sat down beside her and read to her from a book of Buddhist teachings, soft, gentle words about compassion and peace. Shi Hu sat in the corner and watched. He watched the old woman's face relax as Shi Wen read. He watched the way Shi Wen held her hand gently, like she was his own mother. He watched the way the old woman's eyes filled with tears of gratitude, and in that moment, Shi Hu understood. He understood that compassion wasn't a rule. It was a feeling. It was a choice. It was seeing someone's pain and wanting to ease it, even if it meant getting your robes wet, even if it meant breaking a rule, even if it meant letting go of judgment. After they left the old woman's house, they walked back to the river. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, and the river looked calmer now, the water glowing in the sunset light. They crossed the bridge this time. The water had gone down a little, and the planks were no longer submerged. Shi Wen, Shi Hu said as they walked, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I judged you, and I judged the woman, and I forgot to be compassionate. I was so focused on the rules, I forgot the heart of what it means to be a monk. Shi Wen smiled. There's no need to apologize, he said. We all learn. The path to compassion isn't straight. It's full of stumbles, full of mistakes. The important thing is to keep walking, to keep trying, to keep seeing the people in front of you. They walked back to the temple in silence, the air filled with the smell of blooming willows. She, who felt lighter, like the weight of judgment had been lifted from his heart. He thought about the woman and the old woman and how Shi Wen had helped them. He thought about how that help had made them happy and how it had made Shi Wen happy too. He realized that compassion wasn't just about helping others. It was about helping yourself, about letting go of anger, letting go of judgment, letting go of the weight that keeps you from being happy. In the weeks that followed, Shi Hu changed. He stopped judging the people in the village. He started helping them, carrying water for the old man who lived alone, fixing the roof for the family whose house had been damaged in a storm, reading to the children who couldn't read themselves. He still followed the temple's rules, but he didn't follow them blindly. He followed them with a heart of compassion, knowing that the rules were there to guide him, not to chain him. One day, they went back to the river. The bridge was dry, and the water was calm. They sat on the bank, watching the willow branches dip into the water. Shi Wen, Shi Hu said, "Do you remember the day we carried the woman across the river?" Shi Wen nodded. "I do. She came to the temple last week with her mother. Her mother is feeling better. They brought us a basket of eggs." Shi Hu smiled. "I'm glad," he said. "I think that day changed me. I learned that judgment is a weight, and compassion is a gift to others and to ourselves." Shi Wen nodded. "That's the truth," he said. "The Buddha said that hatred does not cease by hatred, but only by love. Judgment is a form of hatred, hatred for the things we don't understand, hatred for the things that don't fit our rules. But compassion, love, is the only way to let go of that hatred. It's the only way to find peace. It's the only way to find happiness." That's the lesson of the two monks and the river, isn't it? We're all like Shi Hu. Sometimes we judge others for their choices, for their mistakes, for the ways they're different from us. We cling to our rules, our beliefs, our ideas of right and wrong, and we let that judgment weigh on our hearts. We think that judging others will make us feel better, will make us feel pure or right, but it only makes us feel angry, feel bitter, feel alone. Compassion, however, is the opposite. Compassion is seeing someone in need and helping them, even if they're different from us, even if they've made mistakes, even if it means stepping outside our comfort zone. Compassion is letting go of judgment, letting go of right and wrong, and just seeing the person in front of us, a person who hurts, who fears, who loves, just like we do. The Buddha taught that all beings desire happiness, just as I do. When we judge someone, we forget that. We forget that they're just like us, trying to be happy, trying to avoid pain, trying to get through the day. But when we're compassionate, we remember that we're all connected, that we're all part of the same journey. Think about your own life. Who have you judged recently? A friend who made a mistake, a stranger who looked different from you, a family member who didn't do things your way. How did that judgment make you feel? Angry, bitter, alone? Now, think about what would happen if you let go of that judgment. What if you saw that person as someone just like you, trying their best, struggling, hoping for happiness. What if you helped them instead of judging them? How would that make you feel? Light, happy, connected. She who learned that judgment is a weight, but compassion is a gift. And we can learn that too. We can let go of the rules that blind us, let go of the judgment that weighs us down, and just be kind. We can help the person in need, even if it means getting our robes wet. We can see the humanity in everyone, even if they're different from us. That's the wisdom of the two monks and the river. That's the wisdom of Buddhist principles for daily happiness. Compassion isn't just about helping others. It's about freeing yourself from anger, from judgment, from the weight that keeps you from being happy. It's about seeing the world with kindness and finding happiness in the act of giving. As you listen to this, take a moment to breathe. Feel the weight of any judgment you're carrying. Let it go with each breath. Feel the warmth of compassion in your heart. Let it grow with each breath. Think about someone you've judged recently. Send them a thought of kindness. Wish them happiness. Wish them peace. We'll move to our next story soon, but for now, just stay here. Stay with this feeling of compassion. Stay with the knowledge that kindness is a gift to them and to you. Stay with the peace that comes from letting go of judgment and embracing the humanity in everyone. Let's carry the gentle compassion of She Wen and She Hu with us, that soft understanding of seeing others with kindness, of letting go of judgment as we turn our steps to a range of snow-capped mountains, where the air is thin and crisp and the sky is a shade of blue, so bright it feels like it could wrap around you. These mountains are home to a peak called Cloud's Rest, a tall, jagged peak that rises above the others, its top often hidden in clouds. For years, climbers from all over the world have come to climb Cloud's Rest, drawn by the challenge, by the promise of standing at the top and seeing the world stretch out below. One of these climbers is a young man named Jin. Jin is 25, with a strong body and a determined mind. He's climbed many mountains before, smaller ones, steeper ones, ones with more dangerous paths. But Cloud's Rest is different. It's the mountain his father always wanted to climb, but never got the chance. His father died when Jin was a teenager, and since then, climbing Cloud's Rest has been Jin's dream, a way to honor his father, a way to prove to himself that he's strong enough, good enough, worthy enough. Jin arrives at the base of the mountain in early summer, when the snow has melted enough to make the path passable, but not so much that the rocks are slippery. He's brought everything he needs: a heavy backpack filled with food and water, a tent, a rope, a map. He's spent months training, running, lifting weights, practicing his climbing skills. He's read every book about Cloud's Rest, studied every map, talked to every climber who's ever reached the top. He knows the path by heart. 3 days of hiking, then 2 days of climbing. Then the final push to the summit on the 6th day. He sets out on the first morning, the sun rising over the mountains, painting the snow pink and gold. He walks quickly, his boots crunching on the gravel path, his eyes fixed on the peak in the distance. He doesn't stop to look at the wildflowers that grow along the path, purple and yellow and white, nodding in the breeze. He doesn't stop to listen to the birds that sing in the pine trees, their voices clear and sweet. He doesn't stop to drink from the small streams that flow down the mountain, their water cold and fresh. He's focused on the end goal, on proving himself. By the end of the first day, his legs are sore, his shoulders ache from the heavy backpack, and his throat is dry. He sets up his tent in a small clearing, eats a quick meal of dried fruit and nuts, and falls asleep as soon as his head hits the pillow. He dreams of standing on the summit of Cloud's Rest, looking down at the world, feeling his father's pride. The second day is harder. The path gets steeper, the air thinner. Jin has to stop every few minutes to catch his breath, but he pushes himself faster, higher, closer to the top. He passes a group of climbers who are sitting on a rock, drinking tea and laughing. One of them waves at him. "Hey friend, want to join us? The view from here is amazing." Jin shakes his head. "No, thanks. I need to keep going. I want to reach the next camp before dark." The climber shrugs. "Suit yourself, but don't forget to look up every once in a while. The mountains don't just exist to be climbed. They exist to be admired." Jin doesn't answer. He keeps walking. He doesn't have time to admire. He has a goal to reach. That night, he camps alone, high up on the mountain. The wind blows hard against his tent, and the temperature drops below freezing. He's cold and tired, and his legs feel like they're made of lead, but he doesn't care. He's one day closer to the top, one day closer to his dream. The third day is the hardest yet. The path is covered in loose rocks, and he slips a few times, scraping his hands and knees. The air is so thin he can barely breathe, and his head throbs with a dull ache. He's thirsty. He drank most of his water the day before, and the streams are harder to find. He's hungry. He didn't pack enough food because he wanted to keep his backpack light, but he keeps going. He thinks of his father. He thinks of the summit. He thinks of the pride he'll feel when he gets there. Then, halfway through the day, he slips. It's a small slip, just a foot, sliding on a loose rock, but it's enough. He loses his balance, falls backward, and hits his head on a boulder. Everything goes black. When he wakes up, the sun is setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. His head hurts, his hands are scraped, and his leg is twisted at an odd angle. He tries to stand up, but a sharp pain shoots through his leg, and he falls back down. He's alone, cold, hurt, and he's lost. His map fell out of his pocket when he slipped, and he has no idea where he is. Panic sets in. He's trapped on a mountain alone, with a hurt leg, no map, no water, and very little food. He thinks of his father. He thinks of his dream. He thinks of how stupid he was, pushing himself too hard, not stopping to rest, not asking for help. He starts to cry, quiet, desperate tears. He's failed. He'll never reach the summit. He'll never honor his father. He'll never prove himself. As the sun sets, the temperature drops even more. Jin wraps his arms around himself, trying to stay warm. He looks up at the sky. It's dark now, filled with stars, so bright and close, he feels like he could reach up and touch them. He's never seen stars like that before. Not in the city, not on any other mountain. They're beautiful, breathtaking. He hears a sound, then a soft, gentle sound, like wind through leaves. He turns his head and sees an old man walking toward him. The old man is wearing a thick coat and a woolen hat, and he's carrying a small backpack. He walks slowly, carefully, like he knows the mountain well. "Are you okay, son?" the old man asks, kneeling down beside Jin. Jin shakes his head. I slipped. My leg hurts. I'm lost. I don't have any water, or food, or a map. The old man nods. He takes a bottle of water from his backpack and hands it to Jin. Drink. Slowly. You're dehydrated. Jin drinks. Slowly, savoring the cold, fresh water. It's the best thing he's ever tasted. The old man takes a small bag of food from his backpack, bread, cheese, an apple, and hands it to Jin. Eat. You need your strength. Jin eats, his hands shaking. The bread is warm, the cheese is sharp, the apple is sweet. He hasn't eaten anything this good in days. The old man examines Jin's leg. It's a sprain, not a break. You're lucky. I have some bandages in my backpack. I'll wrap it for you. Then we'll go to my cabin. It's not far from here. You can rest there tonight. Jin looks at him, confused. Your cabin. You live here. The old man smiles. I've lived here for over 40 years. I'm a shepherd. I tend to the sheep that graze on the mountain. I know every path, every stream, every rock. I saw you fall. I've been watching you for the past 3 days. Actually, you walk so fast. You never stop. You never look around. Jin feels his face get hot. I was trying to reach the summit. Clouds rest. It's my dream. My father wanted to climb it, but he never got the chance. The old man nods. I knew your father. He came here once, when he was young. He wanted to climb Cloud's Rest too, but he never did. Do you know why? Jin shakes his head. Because he stopped, the old man said. He stopped to talk to me. He stopped to look at the flowers. He stopped to listen to the birds. He stopped to drink from the streams. He said that the mountain was too beautiful to rush through. He said that the summit wasn't the point. The point was the journey. He said that happiness was in the small moments, the way the sun hits the snow, the way the wind sounds through the trees, the way a good meal tastes after a long day of walking. He never climbed the summit, but he was happy. He said he'd gotten everything he needed from the mountain. Jin stares at him. He can't believe it. His father, the man who'd talked about climbing Cloud's Rest his whole life, had never even tried, because he'd been too busy enjoying the journey. They walked to the old man's cabin that night, slowly, carefully, with the old man helping Jin. The cabin is small, but warm, with a fireplace and a wooden table. The old man builds a fire, and Jin sits by it, warming his hands. The old man makes tea, strong, sweet tea, and they sit and talk. The old man tells Jin stories about the mountain, about the sheep that graze on the slopes, about the storms that roll in from the west, about the climbers he's met over the years, those who rush to the top, and those who stop to enjoy the journey. Most climbers come here looking for something, the old man says. They think the summit will give them what they need, pride or happiness or closure, but they're wrong. The summit is just a rock. It doesn't give you anything. The things you're looking for, the pride, the happiness, the closure, they're already there, in the flowers, in the birds, in the tea, in the conversation. You just have to slow down long enough to see them. Jin thinks about that. He thinks about the past 3 days, the way he'd rushed through the mountain, the way he'd ignored the beauty around him, the way he'd pushed himself to the point of exhaustion. He thinks about how unhappy he'd been even when he was getting closer to the summit. He thinks about his father and how he'd found happiness in the journey. not the end goal. He realizes that he'd been wrong. All this time, he'd thought the summit was the point, but the point was the mountain itself. The point was the flowers, the birds, the streams, the conversations with strangers. The point was the small moments, the ones he'd missed because he was too busy looking ahead. The next morning, the old man helps Jin wrap his leg again. He gives Jin a map, a hand-drawn map with all the best paths, the best streams, the best places to stop and rest. "Are you going to try to climb the summit again?" the old man asks. Jin shakes his head. "No, I think I've already found what I was looking for. I want to walk back down the mountain, slowly. I want to see the flowers. I want to listen to the birds. I want to drink from the streams. I want to enjoy the journey." The old man smiles. "Your father would be proud." Jin walks down the mountain slowly over the next 3 days. He stops to look at the flowers, really look at them, noticing the way their petals curl, the way they smell. He stops to listen to the birds, their songs, their calls, the way they fly through the trees. He stops to drink from the streams, cupping his hands, feeling the cold water on his skin, tasting its freshness. He stops to talk to the climbers he meets, sharing stories, drinking tea, laughing. He doesn't reach the summit of Cloud's Rest, but he doesn't care, because he's happy, truly happy. He's found what his father found, the happiness in the small moments, the joy in the journey. When he gets back to the city, he tells his friends and family about his trip. He tells them about the old man, about the cabin, about the lessons he learned. He tells them that he didn't climb the summit, but that he found something better, a way to be happy every day. By slowing down and appreciating the small things, he starts to change. After that, he stops rushing to work. Instead, he walks, noticing the way the sun hits the buildings, the way the wind blows through the trees, the way people smile at each other. He stops eating his lunch at his desk instead. He sits in the park, watching the children play, listening to the birds sing. He stops working late. Instead, he goes home, cooks a meal, and talks to his family about their day. He realizes that the mountain taught him something important, something the Buddha had taught centuries ago, that happiness is not in the future, or in the past, or in some distant goal. It's in the present. It's in the small moments, the ones we often miss, because we're too busy looking ahead. That's the lesson of the mountain climber's pause, isn't it? We're all like Jin sometimes. We're all climbing our own clouds, rest, chasing goals, chasing dreams, chasing happiness in the future. We're so focused on the end that we forget to enjoy the journey. We're so busy rushing through life that we miss the small moments, the way the sun rises in the morning, the way a friend's laugh sounds, the way a good cup of tea tastes on a cold day. The Buddha taught that life is a series of moments. To live fully, you must live in each moment. The small moments aren't just breaks from the real work of life. They are the real work. They are the things that make life worth living. They are the things that bring true happiness. Think about your own life. What clouds rest are you climbing? What goal are you chasing that's making you miss the small moments? Is it a promotion at work, a degree, a perfect body, a perfect relationship? Are you so focused on the end that you're forgetting to enjoy the journey? Are you missing the flowers, the birds, the streams along the way? Jin learned that happiness isn't in the summit. It's in the pause. It's in the moment when you stop, look around, and see the beauty that's already there. It's in the moment when you slow down, breathe, and appreciate the life you're living. We don't have to climb mountains to learn this lesson. We just have to slow down. We just have to pause. We just have to look around. The happiness we're looking for is already here, in the small moments, in the journey, in the now. As you listen to this, take a moment to pause. Breathe in the air around you. Feel the warmth of the sun on your skin or the coolness of the night air. Listen to the sounds around you, the wind, the birds, the quiet hum of the world. Notice the small things, the way your hands look, the way your breath feels, the way the light hits the room. This is happiness, not in some distant goal, not in some future moment, here, now. In the pause, that's the wisdom of the mountain climber's pause. That's the wisdom of Buddhist principles for daily happiness. It's not about climbing to the top. It's about enjoying the journey. It's not about chasing happiness. It's about noticing it in the small moments, in the quiet pauses, in the life you're already living. As we come to the end of our 10 stories, let's carry this wisdom with us. Let's carry the lesson of the monk and the broken bowl to let go of attachment, the lesson of the farmer's luck to accept the lesson of the silent answer to be present, the lesson of the thirsty traveler to find contentment within, the lesson of the weeds in the garden to embrace imperfection, the lesson of the blind man with a lamp to be kind, the lesson of the carpenter's lesson to focus on the process, the lesson of the lost pearl to find happiness within, the lesson of the 2 monks and the river to be compassionate, and the lesson of the mountain climber's pause to slow down and appreciate the small moments. These are not just stories, they are invitations. Invitations to live differently, to be happier, to be more peaceful, to be more human. So tonight, as you drift off to sleep, remember this: happiness is not something you have to find. It's something you have to notice. It's in the breath you're taking right now. It's in the quiet of this moment. It's in you. Good night. And may your days be filled with small moments of happiness, moments that remind you of the peace and joy that are always, always yours. As we come to the end of our journey through these 10 Zen stories, let's take a moment to breathe, to let all the wisdom we've shared sink in, like rain seeping into soft soil. You might not remember every detail of every story tomorrow, and that's not the point. What matters is the quiet shift that's happened inside youth, where your mind feels a little lighter, the way your heart feels a little softer, the way you might look at tomorrow's small moments with a little more warmth. These Buddhist principles for daily happiness aren't something you have to do perfectly. There's something you practice one breath, one kind word, one moment of letting go at a time. The monk with the broken bowl taught us to release attachment. The farmer taught us to trust the blind man with the lamp taught us that kindness feeds our own joy. All of these lessons are already inside you, waiting to be remembered when you need them most. Tonight, as you drift into sleep, carry this thought with you. Happiness isn't a destination. It's the path itself, the way you notice the sun through the window in the morning, the way you forgive yourself for a small mistake, the way you hold a friend's hand when they need it. You don't have to search for it. You just have to let it be. Thank you for joining me on this quiet journey. May your sleep be deep, your dreams be peaceful, and your tomorrow be filled with little moments of happiness, moments that remind you of the peace and joy that are always, always yours. Good night.